Tonight on American Sunrise Early Edition, a U.S. trade court puts just about all of the Trump tariffs on hold. It's not yet clear how long the hold will stay in place, but this will be yet another long battle at the court system for sure. President Trump's pressure on Harvard kicks up another notch. Now, Trump is floating the idea of capping foreign enrollment at the school at 15%. Right now, it's at 31%. 2 weeks. 2 weeks. That's how long President Trump says it will take for him and the rest of the world to see if Vladimir Putin is serious about ending the war with Ukraine. I think most of us can already take a guess at how that will turn out. A watchdog group insists there's no evidence Joe Biden had any knowledge of many of the executive orders he signed on environmental issues. Perhaps this is the pathway towards bringing Biden's cognitive problems before the courts because someone's going to sue. And all the new spending in the big, beautiful budget bill is angering Elon Musk, who just spent 4 months slashing excess government spending. Does he have a point? American Sunrise Early Edition begins now.
Welcome to American Sunrise Early Edition. The show where faith, freedom, and the values that built this nation take center stage.
Your good deeds and bad deeds. That's how we're going to judge you.
Join host Jake Novak as he breaks down the stories that matter.
We will be letting the public know regularly what we have found.
American Sunrise Early Edition with your host, Jake Novak, starts now.
Welcome to this Thursday edition of American Sunrise Early Edition. And yes, it is already Thursday. I told you it was going to be a short week, and it certainly is. But let's get to all of the news that's been breaking and developing just over the last 23 hours since we last got together. And again, a very, very busy overnight once again in America and around the world. Joining me to help me do that and help us do that is Daily Signal columnist Jarrett Stepman. And Jarrett, you have a new column out about how Harvard and many schools like it have created all the problems they're dealing with now. This general media narrative, the legacy media narrative that Trump is suddenly all of a sudden bullying these schools is hardly true. Of course, Jarrett, we know that these crazy anti-Semitic protests and demonstrations on these campuses started well before President Trump took office again. And of course, they had a policy for many, many years of allowing radical faculty to set standards, admitting students for probably mostly financial reasons, but maybe also for far left political reasons. Jared, tell us exactly how did they put themselves in this hole?
Yeah, I mean, the protests themselves, I think, have become obnoxious to Americans. And these schools treat these like they're supposed to be negotiations. I mean, it's not just Harvard. You had Northwestern that brought on faculty because of the demands of some of these student protesters. I mean, is that really how you're supposed to get your way on a college campus? Those who make the biggest disruption to other students are those who get their way. I think what's happened here is the reality is the United States, the American people have been funding higher education for years to the tune of billions of dollars. I mean, certainly in the case of Harvard, we have. I think for a long time, politicians, the political leaders of this country, basically gave them a blank check to do whatever they wished. The Trump administration is the first, certainly in my lifetime, to call that into question, to say that we expect some basic standards of decency on these campuses that don't really even reflect the broad and diverse opinions of the United States. In many cases, they seem to reflect actually the opinions of other nations that are hostile to the United States. And all we demand is some basic compliance with civil rights law, some basic compliance with being representative of the American people in some way. But instead of even trying to deal with the president, these schools, especially Harvard, because it has a massive endowment, has decided to go into resistance mode. So I think President Trump is entirely justified in doing what he's doing. I love the fact that he said that he may take this money and give it to trade schools. And frankly, if I was maybe a middling state school right now, I'd be making the point to the president saying we can enforce civil rights law here. We won't let protesters disrupt our campus and bring it to a halt. So I think there's a real shakeup in higher education right now that has been a very long time in coming. These schools have been very partisan for a long time, and good for Trump for actually taking these very bold steps that I'm not sure many other presidents would have done.
Yeah, and it's just amazing how so few people, even people who believe they're historians, don't understand that some of the worst movements in world history started in universities. People should know that the anti-Semitic policies of the Nazis took hold in Germany's elite universities well before the rest of the country. As I often remind people, Albert Einstein was forced out of Germany into exile in 1932, a year before the Nazis won any elections. Okay? That is something people need to remember. This is nothing new. Now, President Trump is making an argument about one facet of this problem. He's talking about the sheer number of foreign students at Harvard that may be the problem. Remember, a lot of these students come from countries that are very hostile to the United States, and they're regimes where, let's just say, no one has enough money or even the permission to come to a school like Harvard coming out of some of these regimes unless the regime says it's okay. In other words, these people are very often being sent to infiltrate our society, to infiltrate these universities. So let's watch President Trump's little bit. He has some new math to tell us about in this soundbite. Check this out.
So why would 31%? Why would a number so big? I think, number one, I think they should have a cap of maybe around 15%, not 31%. We have people want to go to Harvard and other schools. They can't get in because we have foreign students there. But I want to make sure that the foreign students are people that can love our country. We don't want to see shopping centers exploding. We don't want to see the kind of riots that you had. And I'll tell you what, many of those students didn't go anywhere. Many of those students were troublemakers caused by the radical left lunatics in this country.
Jared, I'll repeat the scenario I mentioned I first came up with about a month ago on this program. If a South African white student came to the University of Alabama immediately with the purpose of coordinating with the local KKK and started protests and riots on campus, we would want to deport that person. And we would also ask why he was admitted in the first place. That's my way of talking about not all these foreign students are looking to actually study. You know, we had that guy at Columbia who'd been a student for 17 years. They're here to be political activists, and that's putting it politely. So I think this is an interesting policy. And of course, they may get 0% foreign students if they keep this up, right, Jarrett?
Yeah, I mean, what is the value add to the American people of bringing these individuals in? I thought it was incredible that Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that they may start simply ejecting all Chinese connected to the CCP from our schools. Again, something that I think is very important. That the Chinese Communist parties tried to infiltrate the United States through Confucius Institutes, through many of their so-called students, in many cases, who are, I think, are direct agents of the communist regime there. And again, what's the value add to our country? I mean, the United States is propping up these institutions with federal dollars, and yet they are harboring people who are in some cases very much hostile to the American people. It's not the American people's job to fund the credentialing system for the global elite. That's not our job. And the fact is, at one point, it was very interesting. A commentator, Charles Murray, wrote on X that in the 1950s and even early 60s, over 98% of the students at Harvard were American born. Why has that changed so dramatically in recent years? Now, the schools say they need it to make money, but frankly, I don't think there'll be open seats at Harvard if people had to pay full price. So I think the argument's ridiculous. I think these are bad decisions that have been growing for a long time. And I'm tired of the infiltration by a lot of nasty actors around the globe into the American elite system. These people are given a place of privilege in American society, and that needs to end. These schools need to reflect the American people more than they have over the past really 50 years.
Yeah, you don't have to go as far back as the 50s, Jared. I was at Columbia in the late 80s, early 90s. Could count on one hand the number of foreign citizens who were in the undergraduate classes that I was. I mean, just this is an explosion, and this is not an organic development. Let's put it that way. Jarrett, President Trump has now given us a 2-week window. I'll call it. That's what he's calling it, to dealing with Vladimir Putin. He says basically that over the next 2 weeks we'll find out whether he's serious or not about peace. Spoiler alert, Jarrett. Vladimir Putin is not serious about peace. The question is, what are we going to do about it? Are we going to keep pumping all this money and weaponry to Ukraine? Are we going to find some way for us to extricate ourselves from this and basically say to ourselves, neither side is serious, neither side is something that really helps the American interest? Or are we going to find some kind of third way? Because frankly, if we're waiting for Vladimir Putin to get serious about peace, it's going to take a lot longer than 2 weeks.
I mean, there might be a third way. And I think the only person who truly knows that is President Donald Trump. I mean, he really has two options right now. He can decide essentially to walk away from this conflict entirely, or find a way to escalate. I think there's maybe two sides even within President Trump that considers the situation. And I think it is very serious what he's dealing with right now. I will say that there is a massive gap in between this executive and the previous one, which I'm not even sure if the previous president could even have a discussion or talks with Putin because of his infirmity. So I think this is a very a troubled negotiation from the beginning. I think Putin has wanted to string the United States along. I think Trump has been rightly frustrated with that. And the question is, where can we put pressure points on Russia around the globe, if not directly in Ukraine, maybe elsewhere with additional sanctions? I think the Golden Dome, I think, is very much aimed at Russia, saying the United States is going to undercut their massive nuclear arsenal by creating a defensive system for them that Russia was certainly not happy about. So I think there are pressure points that the United States can use in these negotiations and can push, hopefully, our European partners to do so as well, because they still buy a lot of Russian oil. They still are essentially funding the Russian war effort while also being very much against it. So I think there are things that can be done now to put a kibosh on this. But yes, I mean, at some point, Trump may just have to walk away from this too, and that needs to be on the table.
Yeah, it has to be. It's gone on for so long, and obviously the Biden administration takes so much responsibility for this, for happening under their watch in the first place. But now this is this president. He can't keep passing the buck on this, and I don't think he is passing the buck. But I think he really needs to come up with that third way and let the American people know about it pretty soon, because this is a lot of money and a potential major escalation into a world war. So no easy answers here. Finally, Jarrett, let's talk about the media industry here a little bit, because NPR, National Public Radio, is suing the Trump administration, basically saying that it is absolutely entitled to taxpayer money. I can't believe it's actually come to this. I thought that even these far left media outlets would basically say at some point, hey, we need to raise more money. They would make this as an excuse to maybe raise more money, maybe even come out ahead of the deal. But they've decided to actually say in legal documents that the American taxpayer must pay them money. And this is supposed to be a media outlet, supposed to be a news organization. I just can't believe they've gone this far, and they're willing to put it on paper. But here's the thing, Jarrett, just like Harvard, I think if you think Harvard doesn't have a lot of support in middle America, I don't think NPR does either. And NPR has a couple of shows that are very, very good. It's called podcasting. It's called streaming. They can put them on there, and then we don't have to pay for it.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's been a few years since Car Talk was on NPR. And really, it's funny that, this undercuts their argument that, well, they don't really need the federal money. They can exist without it. Well, then do so. They won't do so. And I think it's interesting, too, that they're now trying to say that they have, the First Amendment protects them in this case. You had their CEO years ago saying the First Amendment was a major problem, that it was an impediment, actually. So I wonder what changed in that time. And the idea that the First Amendment was created so that the American people have to shovel money to a news organization that they say, is being attacked because of viewpoint discrimination. Well, what kind of viewpoint is a national public station supposed to have? I mean, my opinion, I think they're in violation of the 1934 Communications Act. So the idea that they have some kind of case in court over First Amendment grounds to get perpetual money until kingdom come for their media organization is awfully rich. I mean, what if the federal government, what if the Trump administration decides to just say, well, we're going to give money to media organizations that we like? I mean, should that be a protected First Amendment right? The argument itself is ridiculous. And frankly, I don't think they're buying any goodwill with the American people with this. They may hope that the courts come in and help them. I don't think ultimately they will. But I think it's over for NPR. I think they finally will get their funding cut at the end of the day.
If I were a private equity firm, I would go to NPR, pick out those 4 or 5 shows that are good. They've got some good shows. I'll tell you that. I'll say that right now. And I would say let's put this on a streaming network or something like that. Jarrett Stedman, thank you so much for joining us. We wish you an early happy weekend.
Thank you too, Jake.
Okay. Hey, let's be honest. We're not getting any younger. And if you want to look and feel your best, you need to check out Pure Health Research. They have 45 premium health supplements designed to help with every health goal, whether it's boosting your energy, trimming belly fat, supporting healthy blood sugar, pumping your testosterone up, or even reducing swelling in your legs. Pure Health Research Supplement Store has you covered. Each formula is crafted with natural, non-GMO ingredients backed by clinical research, and manufactured right here in the USA. And here's the best part, Pure Health Research is offering you an exclusive 35% discount. Just go to purehealthresearch.com and use coupon code EARLY at checkout. With their 365-day money-back guarantee, there's zero risk in trying something new. So why wait? Head over to purehealthresearch.com now, explore their 45 amazing supplements, and save 35% before this deal ends with coupon code EARLY. Don't miss this chance to feel your best. Okay, coming up, Justice Samuel Alito just drilled down to the core when it comes to the issue of these cases where students get censored in public schools. Spoiler alert, only some kids are getting censored, and that's the problem. American Sunrise Early Edition, we'll be right back. Beautiful shot of Washington, D.C. right there with the Potomac on the left. Beautiful day. A little bit gray, but it's still nice. Welcome back to American Sunrise Early Edition. I'm Jake Novak. Special welcome to those of you on Getter and Rumble. You're already busy commenting. Thank you for that. I want to make a point about that there are only two genders t-shirt case that I believe, unfortunately, the majority of the Supreme Court decided not to hear that case. You might remember there was a student who came to school on what was supposed to be Pride Day. He wore a t-shirt that said there are only two genders. They pushed him out. And this was a case that was brought through the courts. The student, I think, rightfully arguing that his free speech rights were being taken away. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court upheld a lower court decision and is allowing that suspension and that expulsion. Again, I don't think it was permanently expelled, but to stand. Well, Samuel Alito wrote in a minority report or minority decision explaining the issue with this case that I think everyone needs to understand. For those of you who are a little bit confused, I think a lot of people are thinking, well, this is a case of censorship and the schools have the right to censor. Actually, what the court said is that they don't, and that this was basically not a violation of free speech rights, when of course it was. And what Alito was talking about in his decision, which I think everyone needs to focus on, is that if you have free speech rights for some and not for others, then you don't have free speech. It's as simple as that. And again, there are a lot of people claiming free speech especially on college campuses these days, who aren't exactly getting in trouble for free speech. They're getting in trouble for harassing students, for stopping people from going to class, for following them within a foot of their face and yelling at them. That's not a free speech right. That's protected. Okay. And that's not even free speech. But in this case, wearing a T-shirt that doesn't threaten anyone and doesn't say you're going to cause any violence is absolutely protected free speech. And sadly, most of the justices on the Supreme Court decided not to uphold that. Don't ever call this a conservative Supreme Court. That's what I've been asking you for months on this program, because it's not. It is not a majority conservative court, not even by a long shot. All right. And now for some more scenes from the situation in Gaza that really tell you the story about what's happening. This will tell you who the real bad guys are. What you're seeing here are, again, a bunch of people in Gaza rushing towards what turns out to have been a big warehouse where Hamas was hiding and stashing all the aid that was supposed to go to them. And they ran towards it. Now, we saw this yesterday in a similar situation where a bunch of people, from hundreds of people, rushed towards new aid that had been provided to them by the United States and Israel, and Hamas couldn't do anything to stop them. This was a little bit different because they were going after a Hamas warehouse, and the people were shot at. Hamas did shoot at these people. I'm hearing reports of 3 of them being killed, but still, they were able to get into that warehouse and get into a lot of that aid that had been stolen from them. So again, I still say Hamas is finished, but that doesn't mean it isn't still a little bit deadly for people to go after all that aid that they stole. Remember, every death, every atrocity in Gaza is Hamas's fault. They started a war, they took hostages, and they are killing their own people, quite literally, in this video. Okay, tax day may have passed, but for millions of Americans, the real trouble is just beginning. If you missed the April 5th deadline or still owe back taxes, the IRS is ramping up enforcement. Every day you wait only makes things worse. With over 5,000 new tax liens filed daily and tools like property seizures, bank levies, and wage garnishments, the IRS is applying pressure at levels we haven't seen in years. Increased administrative scrutiny means collections are moving fast. The good news? There's still time for Tax Network USA to help. Self-employed or a business owner? Even if your books are a mess, they've got it covered. Tax Network USA specializes in cleaning up financial chaos and getting you back on track fast. Even after the deadline, it's not too late to regain your control. Your consultation is completely free, and acting now could stop penalties, threatening letters, and surprise levies before they escalate. Call 1-800-905-8000 or visit tnusa.com/RAV. You may have missed April 15th, but you haven't run out of options. Let Tax Network USA help before the IRS makes the next move. Coming up, it's the one company that moves the stock market more than any other. It's called NVIDIA. And NVIDIA just showed us its first real report card for the year. And what did it say? I'll have that for you when American Sunrise Early Edition comes right back. like another beautiful morning in Miami, Florida as we begin this Thursday here on American Sunrise Early Edition. Let's take a look at how beautiful it might look in the markets this morning. Pretty nice. As we take a look at some of the numbers there, we are looking at a more than 200-point gain for the Dow as we open. Bigger percentage jumps for the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ. Now, this is a combination. There's two reasons for this. Let me talk about the first reason here. There was a U.S. trade court that put basically all of the Trump tariffs on hold for now. Probably won't last for very long, but this is the hold right now. It'll move up through the courts. But just goes to show that the markets, A, aren't that worried as much about tariffs in the first place, so a hold on the tariffs doesn't spur a massive rally. I mean, a 200-point jump at the Dow, I mean, that's not much percentage-wise, as you can see. And also, they're probably expecting the tariffs to go back into place shortly anyway. So that's one aspect of it. I want to talk about what else is going on. We had NVIDIA. Now, that is the big chip company that is the number one AI chip company right now in the world. Everyone knows about it. NVIDIA, by the way, is worth more than the entire German stock market index. That gives you an idea of how powerful it is. And for those of you who think that the markets have been volatile lately just because of the Trump tariffs, it was the NVIDIA. The NVIDIA started to run into some trouble a few months ago, and that actually started a lot of the volatility. Well, NVIDIA posted a good report card yesterday for the first 3 months of the year. They beat Wall Street estimates on profits and on sales, but they also talked about how all the restrictions on the business they can do with China have really hurt them and have put taken billions of dollars off the table for them. Again, I'm not saying we should cry over that, but that's what they're talking about. But still, NVIDIA shares are up about 4%, about 5% or so in the pre-market, which means that's one of the reasons why we've got that big jump expected for the NASDAQ, which is the tech-heavy index. That's why we're expecting that. So NVIDIA, the tariff pause, looks like basically a very modest rally, not a massive jump forward. And that tells you everything you need to know right now about how afraid, supposedly, the markets are about the tariffs. They're not so afraid of them, because if they were, they'd be going up a lot more this morning on this tariff pause. But it's not all good news to tell you about this morning. The average 30-year mortgage continues to rise. It's at 6.98% right now, up from about 6.92% the week before. Folks, this is one of the big stumbling blocks in our economic recovery. Under the Biden administration, interest rates jumped because that's what happens when you have inflation. And we went from mortgages that were between 2 and 3% to mortgages now that are right at 7%. That is a massive jump. Meanwhile, the prices of the homes that you're paying those rates on haven't fallen at all. There's been a little bit of a slowdown in the increase in home prices, but that's about it. Until we get mortgage rates below 6%, and you've heard me say this before, it could even be 5.999%. But until we get below 6%, I think a huge part of our economic recovery in this country is going to be delayed. That's disturbing. We need homes to be able to move in this country in a relatively orderly fashion. Well, if you hate capitalism, one way to destroy capitalism is to get inside some of the major big capitalist companies and undermine it with politics. That's what folks tried to do with Chevron yesterday during the Chevron shareholders meeting. They were trying to get Chevron to adopt human rights platforms and other environmental platforms. Now, look, folks, we want everyone to respect human rights. We would like everyone to be relatively good about the environment. I'm talking about not dumping stuff into an ocean and just the old school pollution. I'm a 70s kid, and I remember when pollution was about littering and putting toxins into our water, into the air, not breathing out carbon dioxide. According to a lot of people in the world now, that's pollution. That's ridiculous. However, that's what some of the people who got involved in Chevron, they probably bought a couple of shares and they tried to get Chevron to adopt those platforms. I'm happy to say Chevron rejected those platforms very, very strongly. Not because I don't want there to be human rights respect in the world, but because that's not what these companies do. You want companies and other people to respect human rights? Do that through the legal system. Do that by electing leaders. Don't go into a corporation and get them woke all of a sudden when the answer is for them is to make more money and to be a profitable company. That's what they do. It's like asking an NFL quarterback to be a great painter. It doesn't really make that much sense. It's nice if he is, but that's not what we're looking for. All right, ladies and gentlemen, start your engines. This is Moving America, sponsored by Artillery Tea Company, artilleryteaco.com. Use promo code America's Tea for 25% off your first order. Artillery Tea is all natural, whole leaf. The tea bags are chemical free, and each tea bag can be used twice. Artillery Tea Company is family and veteran owned and operated. And a portion of your purchase goes to help veteran and first responder charities. ArtilleryTeaCo.com, promo code America's Tea for 25% off your first order. Hey, Mary Barra, she is the CEO of GM. And you may have heard me on this program talking about how, ironically, GM was one of the biggest losers in the tariff policies because GM has so many of their cars that are built in Mexico and Canada. But now Mary Barra, even Mary Barra of GM, is out there talking about how the tariffs could absolutely be a good thing for America and for GM. Now, remember, GM is looking to move more of their production to the actual United States, not just Mexico and Canada. And she apparently, I guess she and her accountants at GM have figured out a way to make this work for them. That's exactly what the Trump administration was trying to do all along. Increase jobs, increase permanent manufacturing here in the United States. And if Mary Barra at GM, still America's biggest auto company, is saying that she can make this work, and this is a good thing for America, even though the tariffs are on hold right now just because of that trade court decision last night. But I think they'll be back in place soon enough. If she is willing to say that, then I think we might have, again, turn the corner on the tariff denialism, the tariff disaster scenarios that people have been putting out there. And that is why I think the markets have stabilized in the last couple of weeks. All right, folks, in the auto industry, there are so many recalls these days. There's a very short threshold to have a recall, so I usually don't like to even talk about them. But this one is really big. This is for over 1 million vehicles. Ford is recalling 1.1 million vehicles in the United States because some of their rear view cameras may not display images at all due to a software issue. That could be pretty bad. The recall affects a lot of Ford vehicles, but mostly recent model Ford Broncos and Ford F-150 trucks. Basically from the 2021 to 2024 model years. There are other models affected by this, so check with your dealer, but they'll probably be getting in touch with you via the mail or email. 1.1 million vehicles recalled. That's a lot. All right, Jeep Chrysler Dodge parent Stellantis has named Antonio Filosa as its next chief executive officer. Well, the reason why this is interesting because this guy is not only an insider, he's been there for 25 years, but he has been, right now his job is the head of Stellantis Americas. So he's basically the American face of Stellantis, the top American executive right now. And they're going to make him the international, the CEO, the big honcho, the head cheese, the whole thing. He's going to run it. And that, I think, also might be a result of the tariffs. They are realizing that the American market is so important. Getting a guy who's been running their American division is the way to go. So we'll see how he turns out. Again, Stellantis, a very troubled auto company, pretty much always has been. These brands, with the exception of Jeep, have always had a little bit of trouble against their competitors. All right, and now for some really good news. I was talking about General Motors and how they're focusing on the U.S. again. I'm going to give you a specific example. We just found out that GM is going to make an $888 million investment, so basically $1 billion, in their Tonawanda propulsion plant. Now, that is near Buffalo, Tonawanda County, and that is where they make V8 engines for some of their more popular models, including what they believe will be in 2027. They'll be able to make those V8 engines for the Chevy Silverado and the GMC Sierra. Those are popular trucks. Obviously, you guys knew that already, and that is going to be now in the Buffalo area. And by the way, this might also have something to do with electric power. You've heard me tell you before, because of Niagara Falls, Buffalo and the Buffalo area has the cheapest electric power in America. And it makes a lot of sense to do more manufacturing there. I've always wondered why there isn't more. Maybe it's because they don't like the snow or they don't like the Buffalo Bills or the Sabres. But for whatever reason, there should be more manufacturing in a place where electricity is so relatively cheap. Okay, coming up, it's been a few weeks since I've updated you on that Texas lottery scandal. I'm going to go to my best source on that story from Texas in just a moment. And speaking of Texas, we're also going to talk about a crazy bill or a crazy push to censor social media in that state. What, in Texas? Are you kidding me? American Sunrise Early Edition will explain that when we come right back. Thursday, May 29th. Here are some of this morning's top stories. A U.S. trade court puts just about all of the Trump tariffs on hold. It's not yet clear how long the hold will stay in place, but this will be yet another long battle up the court system for sure. You can bet that. President Trump's pressure on Harvard kicks up a notch. Now, Trump is floating the idea of capping foreign student enrollment at the school at 15%. Right now, it's at 31%. A watchdog group insists there's no evidence Joe Biden had any knowledge of the many executive orders he signed that affected the environment. Perhaps this is the pathway towards bringing Biden's cognitive problems before the courts because people are going to sue. And there's still a big push to abolish the state lottery in Texas. You know, the one that's completely crooked. American Sunrise Early Edition continues now. Welcome back to American Sunrise Early Edition. It is Thursday. I am Jake Novak, and thank you so much for joining us, especially to those of you watching and commenting on the Getter and Rumble platforms. Again, a lot to get to. Joining us now is, I like to call him our man in Texas. He's Tom Slocum. He's an oil and gas upstream consultant and small business owner. Plus, he was a candidate for Texas Railroad Commissioner. Tom has been joining us over the last few months here and there to tell us about the Texas State Lottery. You'll remember this is the lottery where some investors bought 25 million tickets with basically all the possible lottery combinations, and they did this by buying up a ton of machines, by using a website called Jackpocket, which allows people to do this kind of stuff from out of state. And basically, it was the latest example of what I always tell people: these lotteries are rigged. You cannot win. Please stop playing the lotteries, even if you're not in Texas. It makes no sense. But Tom, we have some updates on how this all shook out and what's going on right now in Austin to try to stop it, don't we?
Yeah, that's right. You know, there's a new federal indictment sealed earlier this year against a Russian named Vlad. And it's all tied into lottery.com. And the details of this story were brought to me by Daniel Greer at the Texas Scorecard. But what's not mentioned in this filing is the men's involvement in the rigged $95 million jackpot. So there's people that have been indicted. You know, there's people that have already come in and said, oh yeah, you know, like this is real. You know, here's my story. Here's my part in it. But what's crazy is that we still can't find some of the lottery officials. These were people that were put there by the government, appointees of Greg Abbott, to come in and explain what was going on. We thought one of them was on the run in Mexico. Turns out he's actually in America. And the Texas Rangers would very much like to talk to this guy. We know he's in America, but it hasn't happened yet. So we got to wonder, you know, what Texas's top cop, Greg Abbott, who is in charge of the Rangers, who is in charge of DPS, if he's going to go find his own appointees. This is all very political. And Dan Patrick definitely took it upon himself to push this into the limelight amongst lots of other things going on in the legislature right now, and what a lot of people say is not a very conservative session. So is this a much needed distraction for Dan Patrick? Perhaps, but it is very real, and it is extreme corruption that must be exposed. And shout out to Daniel Greer, once again at Texas Scorecard, for bringing this to everyone's attention here in Texas and the nation.
Yeah, I mean, look, folks, if you think this is only happening in Texas, where people are basically bending the rules and finding a way to win the lottery, basically, at everyone else who plays at expense, because remember, this isn't exactly self-funded. These are people lining up, using their hard-earned money, thinking they're going to get some kind of a jackpot or have a chance at it, and you don't have a chance. Again, I'm not here to moralize. I'm not a prude. I understand people are going to want to gamble, going to want to play these games, but you need to play a game where you have a chance to win. It's as simple as that. And I don't think that that's possible in any of these state or national lotteries right now. There's no way only Texas is being targeted in this way. It's simple math. Now, speaking of Texas, Tom, you'd think that Texas would be a pretty safe place for free speech, but there's a push to keep minors off of social media. I mean, really, even in Texas? I can understand. Listen, this is something that I think that the parents should be involved in. And by the way, if these states want to create a program, a video, a seminar, informing parents about what they should do to watch their kids on social media, giving them some tools. I think that's a great use of taxpayer money, believe it or not, because I don't think it costs that much, frankly, but I think it would be helpful. But to completely ban it, I mean, does this really have a chance in Texas, Tom?
Yeah, Jared Patterson, somebody I've known since I was 19 years old. He used to live across the hall from me at Texas A&M. He's the one that wrote the bill. He's a state rep from North Texas, and he thinks that the state of Texas and the government knows best. He thinks that they should be able to tell you what apps your children can use and what apps your children can't use. And they think somehow this is going to keep social media out of high schools. Well, I got news for you. Most American kids turn 18 while they're in high school. This means the high school seniors are going to be using these apps. And do you think that other kids in the high school are not going to find ways around the whole thing and use VPNs, et cetera, in order to use whatever apps they want? Of course they are. Of course they're going to do this. This is the nanny state that's moving in to try to raise your children for you. And I don't agree with it. I believe parents know best. We've been fighting for parental rights here in Texas now for years. We know that parents know best. And we know that the schools have oftentimes tried to say, no, you know what, we're going to raise your kids for you, parents. You don't know best. Well, the schools are the government in Texas, right? Those are government schools. This is once again the government trying to tell you that we can raise your children and that we're going to control exactly what they see 24/7 because you parents are not good. They're basically saying that you're a bad parent because you don't know how to control your children and what they have access to on social media. That's what this bill is about. It's we know best. So Jared Patterson wants to raise your kids in Texas, and Greg Abbott may sign the bill. This is just another overstep. Lots of big overstepping in the Texas legislature this session. I don't know another state that's done this, that's banned social media for kids. Do you? I don't.
Yeah. No, there's lots of states that are keeping the phones off during school time. I think that's fine. But to do it even when they're out of school is crazy. All right, let's talk to some national issues because, Tom, you're, of course, a big observer of our national politics as well. And again, this is the biggest scandal of them all. This is, bigger than your lottery, bigger than social media censorship. The fact that we had a president the previous 4 years who was not all there, and we really don't know who was making the decisions. Now, we have something now that I think might be the pathway to get some restitution for this, or at least to get some responsibility for this. There's a watchdog group that is trying to save the American industry. That's basically an energy industry, and I know you're connected with that as well. And they're making the point that there were a lot of executive orders that Joe Biden signed in the White House that there's no way, there's no evidence he knew exactly what he was doing, and these things affected the environment, affected the energy industry. And so they're basically going to start the process of suing to get these things reversed. Now, the reason why this is important, whether these cases are successful or not, is it will put into the court system this question of what are what's the validity of President Biden when he was president, of his orders and the things he signed. And that could start really, hopefully, they're hoping that will open a whole can of worms. Tom, here's what I want to get your comment on. If the same judges who are stopping President Trump and trying to cut his authority down are now forced to rule because they're leftists, that President Biden, not only does he have a lot of authority or had a lot of authority, but anyone involved with him has super authority, how are they then going to go tell the American people that our current president doesn't even have the right to fire people in the executive branch? I think this is an interesting quandary here, don't you?
Yes, it is. It is. They want Biden to have had the power. No, yeah, it was completely legitimate for him to do that. But, oh, no, Donald Trump, no, you can't do that. So they're speaking out of both ends of their mouth on this. These judges are extreme radical leftists. They're very political. Judges in America are not supposed to be political. They're supposed to interpret the Constitution, right? But these guys have gone the opposite direction with it. We know how political this is, and it's a shame. It's a shame. And what they're doing is a stain on the American judicial system, no doubt. Just blatant hypocrisy. And for anyone that has an ounce of intellect at all, they can see what's going on here. I want these autopen decisions reversed, obviously. I think they've destroyed the American energy industry. I listened to my friend Daniel on Conservative Talk Radio yesterday with Kenny Webster here in Houston talk about this at length. And it's amazing how many bad things were signed by the autopen. I'm worried that there were people behind the scenes having things signed, every single day in his administration, and he had, no idea about it. And who are these people? Well, they're lobbyists. They're they're directly connected to industry. They're venture capitalists that are in green energy. And so, they're going to basically have every executive order they can possibly have auto-pinned into place to try to destroy American oil and gas, especially when Joe Biden clearly has no mental capacity and his wife could care less what's going on. They took advantage of someone that did not belong in the White House to do whatever they wanted to and must be exposed.
Yeah, and let me tell you something. There are basically 535 auto pens or something like it in Congress. Joe Biden was in Congress for so many years. That's probably why, in addition to his mental issues, he was so okay with all of this. Because, folks, I have news for you. Members of Congress don't write legislation. In fact, even their staffers don't. They're there to make the copies and to staple them. It's the lobbyists who basically make our laws in this country, especially at the congressional level, at the state house level, even more so. That's what's really going on, folks. And that's why I think it was just so easy for President Biden, a guy who'd been in Congress all that long, to go along with this, even if he had been sharp. And we know that he wasn't. Tom Slocum, thank you so much for joining us. I know it's only Thursday, but you know me, I like to give early happy weekends to everyone. I'll be speaking to you on and offline in the coming days. Have a great weekend. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Jake.
All right, coming up, what is the best way to take the attention away from the biggest presidential scandal of all time, this pardon scandal, these auto pen scandals I was talking about? Well, I'm going to talk about how one legacy media icon is doing a major distraction campaign right now as we speak. American Sunrise Early Edition. We'll be right back. That's our roof camera in West Palm Beach, where the control room is, and that's the roof shot of West Palm Beach. I'm a Gen Xer, so when I see a roof camera, I immediately go to the roof. The roof. The roof is on fire. I can't do the rest of that chant. You guys know what I'm talking about if you're a Gen Xer. Welcome back to American Sunrise Early Edition. Again, as you know, as I've been saying for many months, the Biden cognitive issue scandal the fact that we don't know who the real president of the United States was, but in the previous 4 years, is the biggest political scandal in American history, hands down. I really don't think there's a question of that. And of course, the worst part of it were those massive numbers of pardons, record-breaking pardons by far. I mean, absolutely shattering the record for the number of pardons in total that supposedly Joe Biden signed in December, including pardons for someone who tortured and killed a child. There was no political call to release that person, including the Cash for Kids judge. You remember that judge who sent everyone to juvenile hall in return for kickbacks? No political push for that, which is why I think there was some money involved in some of these things. So, of course, this is the biggest scandal ever and the worst part of it ever. And what's the Washington Post doing, folks? They're focusing on the pardons that Donald Trump is doing, which at least, if you don't like them, at least they're above board. At least the president is talking about them. At least there is no question about why he's pardoning them. He believes that they were basically unfairly treated. Now, again, you may disagree with that, and that's part of the great democratic process. But the Washington Post, David Brody, who joins us now from Washington, D.C., the paper with that democracy dies in darkness lie that they have on their paper, because, again, that may be true, but they don't believe in that. They had nothing. They had very little to say about the tremendous number of pardons, questionable pardons, and I haven't even talked about the pardon for Hunter Biden that Joe Biden did. But every single day now, they're going crazy with editorials and bashing President Trump. But again, at least it's not in darkness, right, David? I thought that was the problem.
Yeah, such a great point, Jake. You laid it out so well. Look, here's the thing. I look back at some of the coverage they were doing when Biden had all of those controversial pardons. No, instead, what they were doing, let me just read you a quick little article. It'll take like 15 seconds. The headline is Biden pardons revolutionary Marcus Garvey on last full day in office. It says he's a seminal figure in the civil rights movement. And it's another reflection of Joe Biden's presidency's ties to the black community. I mean, you know, they're giving him a soliloquy as he leaves office on some of his pardons. So that's part of the problem. And the other thing is some of the coverage that the Washington Post did was about how Biden had to pardon Anthony Fauci. He had to pardon Mark Milley. He had to pardon Liz Cheney, all of them, because Trump is such an evil man that's going to exact retribution. So, I mean, this is the type of coverage that they gave at the time. So there we can compare apples to apples. You know, they always talk about democracy. What do they say? Democracy dies in the darkness, or whatever a stupid saying is. And it's really stupid because you know why? The light is the biggest disinfectant. And the beauty of this is really that should be the slogan, all right? That light is the disinfectant, because that's what we're seeing now. Trump, in a way, is kind of a disinfectant. MAGA has been a disinfectant. We the People, Search for the Truth has all been the disinfectant. Conservative media has been the disinfectant. Why? We're all providing light. We're shining truth. We're shining a spotlight on things that the Washington Post won't do, because they want to hide things that Biden and others have done in darkness. We're here to shine a light about it.
Yeah, and it's also to have a little bit of different news. I mean, how many news organizations look at anything outside of D.C., New York? Even L.A. doesn't get that much coverage, and these are major cities, but the rest of the country is ignored. You know what you shouldn't ignore?
Go
the next
Knicks.
2 hours here on Real
Knicks.
America's Voice. Yeah. Oh, and the Knicks tonight. Poor David. I don't know. I don't think this is going to end well, though. But my best wishes to you. Anyway, American Sunrise, the big show coming up for the next 2 hours. David's one of the 3 people who make that show go. I'll see you tomorrow. It's going to be Friday tomorrow. I told you it was a short week. See you then.
American Sunrise is a great way to start your morning. Join us Monday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern Time. We've got the news of the day and some compelling interviews that you don't want to miss. Here's what you missed from yesterday.
Let's get your quick takes on this RFK changes to the vaccine recommendations, specifically regarding healthy children and pregnant women. What do you guys think about that?
I think it's probably a little late. Could have happened way before now, but it's definitely a good move. I'd like to see, quite honestly, the recommendations change overall, not just for pregnant women and young children. I'd like to see the recommendations change in general, David.
No, it's obviously it's long overdue, and once again, the tinfoil folks were right again.
I wouldn't recommend this. I don't know doctors who would recommend this at this point. So not just for kids and pregnant women, for anybody that I can think of.
The Hill is reporting that some GOP senators are concerned that the bill does not rein in federal spending enough. And one GOP Senate budget hawk called it a debt bomb.
We cannot afford to lose our members from New York, California, and Illinois who need that SALT cap raised to the $40,000 level so that they can come back to Congress.
I don't know how Schumer is going to defend this, because whether you talk about cuts or not, we are talking about reducing taxes. And so if you vote against this bill as a Democrat, you are defending higher taxes for everybody.
President Trump is teasing a major announcement on Iran. Trump says talks have been progressing very nicely, very nicely. And they have reportedly hit the expert level, whatever that means exactly. You can negotiate with Iran all you want, but if they're not going to freeze the uranium, you're going to have some problems.
Because the reality is, Iran says, okay, we can talk if you say that we do away with our nuclear weapons, but the red line for Iran is allowing them to keep uranium. Well, the uranium is the whole point. That gives them still access to the world market, because they can still sell uranium and use that as a way to enrich the nation, and it still gives them the opportunity, if they decide to back out, to still continue the nuclear program and potentially develop a nuclear weapon, which is the whole point of all of this, Iran.
You know, Iran seems to have a very young population, and from my understanding of it is that if they could just overthrow this government somehow, some way, it could be a key to peace in the Middle East. But my understanding is that we're not supposed to negotiate with terrorists, so this whole idea of negotiating with them seems interesting to me. I hope Trump prevails.
And we have to be far more aggressive on our sanction enforcement. Part of the problem is our much weakened U.S. Navy, which has limited reach and endurance to set up and block these shipments out of Iran or Russia.
Ahead on American Sunrise, Elon Musk is out as he is leaving the Trump administration. How will this impact the work of DOGE? Plus, President Trump praising the one big beautiful bill passed by the House for eliminating regulations, but the Senate has its own issues with it. When can we see a final deal? Plus, President Trump says Canada is considering an offer to become the 51st state in exchange for Golden Dome security. We have all the latest. And finally, a new piece in The Guardian lays out how Trump is viewed on the world stage. We have those stories and much more as American Sunrise starts right now.
Good morning, America.
Welcome to American Sunrise.
Whether it's culture,
We have breaking news to share with you.
politics,
President Trump is joining us live now from Florida.
we've got you covered.
this is what it looks like to be a patriot.
We have to protect the American family.
The American dream is still alive.
I'm David Brody.
I'm Terrance.
And I'm Dr. Gina.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Bo Davidson, filling in for Dr. Gina live from beautiful West Palm Beach. And let's bring in now David Brody in Washington, D.C., and Terrance Bates in our Denver newsroom. Good morning, gentlemen. How are you?
Doing well.
Good morning.
Hello, Bo.
Hello, hello.
Good
It's
morning,
great to
Teddy.
see you both. Great to be back here. 3 guys, 3 boxes. What do we do? Where do we go from here, gentlemen?
You know, that is the question, because there's already so much news coming out this morning, guys. Obviously, a lot of people, and this is probably what you'll see mostly on the headlines and around the country, talking about Elon Musk, that his 130 days as a special government employee is about to expire. That's going to happen tomorrow. But, David, I think the bigger story here is this trade court that came out and basically nixed, or at least put on ice, President Trump's tariffs. I think that's a huge story that's probably going to be underreported today.
Yeah, 3 words. Those freaking judges. I mean, here they go again. And this is just a small en banc panel, just 2-1. But look, this is what the Trump administration is up against time and time again. And everybody talks about a constitutional crisis in this country. From the left, you know, the folks on the left are saying it's about the Trump administration. No, the constitutional crisis here are about rogue judges. And we saw it rear its ugly head again. It's big story. It's a big story. And the Elon Musk story is also big. I mean, let's be honest. And if we could just take a truth pill here for just a quick second. Well, actually, we do truth pills and truth bombs all the time here on the show. But as it relates to Elon Musk, look, if things were going swimmingly, and I'm talking about regarding him and his dealings with the cabinet, there were cabinet secretaries frustrated about how he was a bit over his skis and some stuff. I think he probably would have stayed longer. I know Tesla's having some issues, and they're spinning it as that. That's part of it. But I think if it was going over better internally, he probably wouldn't be leaving just so quickly. But because he can always renew for another, whatever it is, 90 days, 180 days, whatever it is. So I think that's part of it, that there was some tension there, and I think he's moving on because of that. I'm just being fully honest, because that's what our audience wants, and you're not going to get it anywhere else.
Well, and David, you're right.
What's your take?
Well, my take is I think the man was like Atlas, taking the world on his shoulders. I mean, he's a private businessman. He's had successful businesses. He comes in to work on D.O.G.E. It was teased, and then now he did it. And we'll talk about it later in the show, but he's been the whipping boy, for so much, and I think undeservedly.
That's a good point.
But my question, David and Terrance, is who comes in after him? Because he's a competent man. Remember, Vivek was going to come in, but then he had to run for another position. So who replaces Elon Musk? Do we have competent people waiting in the wing to do his job? That's really my question.
It's not just him. He's got a team. Go ahead, David. Go ahead.
Okay,
I was just going to say there's a team in place, and what I'd like to see, I know we're going to fight, what I'd like to see is that some of the moves, that the framework is already set. I think the foundation is set. And so now you just kind of, I think, follow the roadmap. You don't necessarily need one person heading that up. President Trump heads that up, if you will, but the roadmap is there, and I think you just need people to continue to follow the roadmap, and more importantly, to codify and make this a consistent thing, not just a one-trick pony. That's my thought, David. Go ahead. What you were going to say, and then we'll get to our Bible.
3 words. No, I have 3 words again. What he said. I agree, T. Bates. Elon Musk has laid the template down. And it's not the template of doom, by the way. Thank you very much. A little movie reference. It's actually a template of something very good in this country that will take place. And now the cabinet secretaries and others, and the Geek Squad's still going to be there. They're going to be charged with continuing on the mission. And you got to hand it to Elon Musk. I mean, look, he's even come out against the big, beautiful bill. He's got some real concerns about the debt and deficit spending. I mean, he's very honest, sometimes maybe too honest to the point where, he doesn't need to say everything he needs to say. It cannot be helpful politically, but at least he's being honest, and you got to give him that.
And that's what they want, David. They want honesty. Well, for more wisdom and honesty, let's check out today's Bible verse, gentlemen. Colossians 2:6 says, "As you therefore have received Christ Jesus the Lord, so walk in him." And that is absolutely a dose of honesty this morning. interesting. Well, the Senate is running into roadblocks in getting the budget deal done. No surprises there. The Hill is reporting that some aides believe this debate could go past the 4th of July. Some senators are weary of Medicaid cuts, like Missouri Senator Josh Hawley and Maine Senator Susan Collins, along with Alaska Senator Lisa Murkowski. Then we have more conservative members like Mike Lee of Utah and Rick Scott of Florida who support the Medicaid cuts. So when can we see a deal? Well, for more on this, let's bring in former Trump spokesperson Liz Harrington. Liz, first of all, I want to ask you just about what Terrance and David and I were talking about. What do you make of Musk leaving? And if you could, give us a grade on how well you think Elon did in his time at DOGE.
Well, good morning. I think he was always going to leave. He wasn't going to stay very long. I think that was, set from the beginning. So this was inevitable. David might have a point there. You might have, decided to stay longer if things were really building momentum. And I think that was kind of the problem. They came in so hot and did so many great things. And then they got so much pushback and stonewalled. And it was clear that Congress wasn't going to work with them. And I think he probably got frustrated, as a lot of people do, just watching it. I mean, this is insane. How can we not get this government under control? And you also alluded to it with the story about the tariffs and these judges. I mean, to be honest with you, why do we even have elections? I mean, what's the point? You finally get President Trump back in there and his agenda. He's so clear and honest with the American people. He's doing all the things he said he was going to do. And literally everything he's done now, including the tariffs, are being blocked by these out of control, tyrannical judges. So, I mean, you have to get frustrated, and maybe that was part of it. But I wish they would have done more. I wish they would have just continued to do what they did in the beginning with USAID and exposing this fraud, exposing the waste. But they kind of didn't get the momentum going forward. And now we're kind of at the status quo again. So I hope President Trump will get that momentum back. I think we will if we can get this bill through, because they're kind of conflating these two pieces when they're really separate. I mean, this bill is about the tax cuts, the regulation agenda, ending the invasion. It does so many good things. And then they're using the biased and crooked CBO to say that this is about the deficit and debt, when letting us keep more of our money, which is the status quo, by the way, because the tax cuts are still into effect until September, it does not increase the deficit. I mean, that's a lie going back so many years. Rush Limbaugh totally destroyed that narrative so long ago, and yet we're falling into it. Those issues are separate. Congress does need to get its act together and start codifying what President Trump and his agenda are doing, so these rogue judges can't block everything.
You talked about the one big beautiful bill. Right now, it seems to be facing some stumbling blocks in the U.S. Senate. President Trump has even said that he's going to start negotiating with senators to try to do away with some of the provisions he doesn't necessarily agree with, or to try to find common ground. Are you at all concerned about this bill getting done by July 4th? And more importantly, could this be a potential Achilles heel for the administration at this point?
Well, I think they will get it done, but I think that, again, there's some frustration among the American people is what else have they been doing? What has Congress been doing? They haven't been codifying anything that the administration has done. Supposedly, this is what they've been working on. And the House got it done by one vote, but that was a little shaky, too. And now the Senate's even worse. It's pathetic. I think people are so tired of seeing all the days off. They barely work, and yet they can't get these concrete things that President Trump ran on just through fast and quickly, so we can move on to attacking the budget, to doing all the other things that President Trump is doing and wants to get in place. So again, I think they will get it through. I mean, President Trump has a good relationship with a lot of people over there. But again, why does it all have to be on him? Why can't he have more allies that will stick together and get the agenda through? And this is exactly what the American people voted for.
Absolutely. Liz, let's talk about President Trump. He's not giving up on Canada being 51st state, by the way. He put on social this. He said, "I told Canada which very much wants to be part of our fabulous Golden Dome system, that it will cost $61 billion if they remain a separate but unequal nation, but will cost $0 if they become our cherished 51st state. They are considering the offer! Exclamation point. I'm surprised you didn't say thank you for your attention to this matter, which always cracks me up when he does that. But Liz, here's the thing. I remember when the Prime Minister there, Canada, was in the Oval Office, and the Prime Minister said, yeah, Canada's never going to be the 51st state. And then Trump kind of chuckled and just mumbled under his breath, yeah, we'll see. Like that. Like, in other words, everybody's playing checkers and he's playing 4D chess. You know, he knows he had the Golden Dome thing that he could offer. He knows he has, I mean, he's always working on a deal. I'm curious to get your thoughts on this.
I think you're absolutely right. It's a deal that he's working on. And he kind of alluded to this the other day. You know, you put up a number so high that's so ridiculous that then it looks like, oh, is he walking back this stuff? No, that's what he wanted all along. He wanted this number, but he started up here. And I think this is kind of the same thing. A lot of people on social media have been pointing out, I don't know if we want Canada. It's another California, more liberal. We don't want that. But I think it's a negotiation tactic, you know, to get more for the United States, get more money from Canada if we're going to provide protection. So just let the master work, right? And also you get a laugh along the way.
Art of the deal, Liz. Let him cook. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Well, Liz, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate you.
Thanks so much.
Liz.
Coming up, we check out the hottest headlines from the RAV newsroom with good old T. Bates. And later, President Trump said he talked to Israel about potentially striking Iran. How is Israel reacting? We have the latest ahead on American Sunrise. Stay with us.
This news break is brought to you by AMAC, Association of Mature American Citizens.
That's Washington, D.C. That's the U.S. Capitol, where there's absolutely no corruption going on, and I'm a bold-faced liar. Welcome back, everybody, to American Sunrise. I'm David Brody here in D.C. Coming up, the Iran nuclear talks. Bibi and Trump not necessarily on the same page. We will discuss that in a moment, and it's not good news. First, though, T. Bates standing by with the latest headlines from the Real America's Voice newsroom. It's sponsored by AMAC.
The Association of Mature American Citizens is the conservative voice for Americans 50 and older. AMAC is fighting for the values that you hold dear. Join today. Together, we can write the course of America.
The head of the Department of Government Efficiency, Elon Musk, is leaving his position this week to return to his major and first jobs, which are at Tesla, SpaceX, and X. Musk was brought on as a special government employee on January 20th. Under that designation, he was expected to perform his duties for 130 days. That time officially ends tomorrow. In an X post announcing his departure, Musk writes, "I would like to thank President Donald Trump for the opportunity to reduce wasteful spending. The DOGE mission will only strengthen over time as it becomes a way of life throughout the government." Musk has said that his goal is to save $2 trillion through his efforts with DOGE. And while he admits he'll likely not achieve that sort of haul, Musk does say that he anticipates savings of $150 billion in the fiscal year 2026 just from fraud, waste, and abuse that his agency has uncovered. President Trump is taking his deal-making skills to Capitol Hill, saying that he plans to negotiate aspects of the so-called One Big Beautiful bill that is now in the U.S. Senate. The measure the House passed last week is facing some pushback from Senate Republicans. Plus, Elon Musk is criticizing it.
I'm not happy about certain aspects of it, but I'm thrilled by other aspects of it. That's the way they go. It's very big. It's the big, beautiful bill. But the beautiful is because of all of the things we have. The biggest thing being, I would say, the level of tax cutting that we're going to be doing.
I was disappointed to see the massive spending bill, frankly, which increases the budget deficit, not just decrease it, and undermines the work that the DOGE team is doing. I think a bill can be big or it can be beautiful, but I don't know if it can be both.
While President Trump plans to offer his input to improve the spending plan and get it passed, there are also reports that the White House will send Congress a package to formalize DOGE cuts targeting federal spending, and that could happen as soon as next week. Well, President Trump, while he deals with funding the U.S. government, he now also has about a week and a half to retool one of the centerpieces of his plan to revitalize the U.S. economy. The Court of International Trade is putting President Trump's tariffs on ice, saying that he overstepped his authority by imposing the duties on imports. The ruling, in effect, immediately invalidates all of the president's tariffs. The administration is appealing Wednesday's decision and questioning the court's authority. The three-judge panel says, and I'm quoting here, "The court does not pass upon the wisdom or likely effectiveness of the president's use of tariffs as leverage. That use is impermissible, not because it's unwise or ineffective, but because federal law does not allow it," the judges are saying. That's a quick check of your headlines. I'll have more headlines coming up, including President Trump reportedly losing his patience with Vladimir Putin. But what might this mean for the end of the war between Russia and Ukraine? We're trying to answer that question for you. But next, Israel claims a top Hamas official has been killed. Find out who as we continue to assess the impact of the war against the terror group. Right now, a quick look at this day in history. It was on this date in 1848 that Wisconsin became the 30th state in the Union. Wisconsin was the last state to be formed in the Northwest Territory, which the U.S. got after the Revolutionary War. The cheese state got territorial status in 1836, and then in 1846, a constitutional convention was authorized, which is key to statehood. The rest, as they say, is history. More American Sunrise coming your way in 2 minutes.
about Nashville, Tennessee, anytime I think of Nashville, Tennessee, for some reason I think of Gina, and like at a honky-tonk bar, something like that, and she's like singing karaoke. I don't know why. I've never seen it. I mean, I've not ever been in a bar with Gina singing karaoke, but it just comes to mind. I don't know. Welcome back, everybody, to American Sunrise. All right, President Trump says he has discussed Iran with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and said he told Netanyahu not to take actions to disrupt these Iran nuclear talks that are currently going on. Take a look.
We can settle it with a very strong document, very strong, with inspections and no trust. I don't trust anybody. I don't trust anybody. So no trust. I want it very strong where we can go in with inspectors. We can take whatever we want. We can blow up whatever we want, but nobody getting killed. We can blow up a lab, but nobody's going to be in the lab, as opposed to everybody being in the lab and blowing it up, right? Two ways of doing it. Yeah, I told him this would be inappropriate to do right now because we're very close to a solution. Now, that could change at any moment. Could change with a phone call. But right now, I think they want to make a deal, and if we can make a deal, save a lot of lives.
All right, well, for more, let's bring in retired Navy SEAL officer Mike Sorelli. Mike, always good to see you. So what do you think? I mean, it is give peace a chance, work on a deal, but what do you think? Do you think something will come about? Because if not, Netanyahu is chomping at the bit, if you will.
And rightfully so. Israel will ill afford to allow Iran to proliferate nuclear weapons that can be used on their homeland. So what Trump is doing here is saying, hey, give me a chance. Let me get this document in place. Let's see if we can resolve this without starting another war. This is also a lesson learned after he had a historic phone call with Putin, moving towards peace, and then Zelensky in Ukraine tries to conduct an assassination attempt against Putin, which derailed the entire thing. So it's a lesson learned, and he's just asking Netanyahu for a little bit of time, which they do have.
To your point about Vladimir Putin and his relationship with President Trump, Politico reporting that President Trump is losing patience with Putin, but he's still unsure of his next move. He, of course, recently has also called Vladimir Putin crazy. And as recently as yesterday said that he expects something to happen here in the next couple of weeks. He expects some sort of movement. What are your thoughts on all of this? Will there be movement? And what do you expect in terms of what that's going to look like ultimately?
So let me say this. Peace talks are never linear. They're slow. They're painful. They break down as easily as they build up. But if you look at the sequential sort of order of events here, and I'm not advocating for Russia in any way. Russia started this unsanctioned war. After the historic phone call on May 20th, Ukraine tried an assassination attempt on Putin while he was in his helicopter. Ukraine also launched one of the most massive drone strikes from their side in the history of the war, to which Russia retaliated. What I don't think Trump had at the time was all the information. So after Trump has this historic phone call, he's moving in the right direction. Russia's working on a peace memorandum. Zelensky makes decisions that derail it and move us back. So we were moving one step forward. Zelensky in Ukraine just took us 5 steps back. If there's an assassination attempt on our national leader, of course, we're going to retaliate. So, guys, this is going to take a while. We've got to make concessions. We've got to build trust. And that just takes time, similar to the peace talks of World War I.
Mike, on the world.
Hey, so my ears really perked up. I'm sorry, I just want to follow up, but my ears really perked up because you said you're not sure that President Trump had all of the information. How can that happen in this day and age, that President Trump, the president, doesn't have all of the information?
And therein lies the question. I'm sure there's discussions going on within the staff of President Trump of why didn't we arm him. But within an interview when he was talking about Trump being crazy, he'd also mentioned that he didn't hear about the assassination attempt. So, a president has a lot of things going on, from foreign policy to domestic policy to economic discussions. So he's got a lot going on. He possibly wasn't armed with the right information on this one.
Fair enough.
Well, Mike, there's a Guardian headline that says that Trump's foreign policy is not so unusual for the U.S. He just drops the facade of moral leadership. When describing Trump's stance on the world stage, this article calls his foreign policy transactional, bereft of any moral considerations, and only intended to enrich himself, not protect America's best interest. Now, Mike, when I see him in the Middle East doing deals, I feel like that's keeping the dialogue flowing and building alliances, not interventionism or, let's say, Joe Biden's foreign policy, which left China unchecked, Ukraine enriched with no return on investment, Iran richer, and Afghanistan turned over to the Taliban with 13 American deaths. So I see this as more peace through strength with some economic ROI in Trump's policy. How do you see it?
This article by David Smith reeks of leftist globalism. Let me say, this isn't the death of American leadership. This is the rebirth. He made 4 points, and I want to counter these. One, he said Trump emptied the ethical and moral framework of diplomacy. Where are we with this moral diplomacy from past administrations that have led to endless wars and just failed, nation building? He also said Trump is using the presidency for personal gain, which, guys, Trump's business ties were well known and legal. But these two were interesting. He didn't raise human rights or Gaza as a whole. Who enacted the Abraham Accords during his first administration, which Biden came in and completely destroyed and has done nothing to stop the bloodshed in both Ukraine and Gaza? And then lastly, people are saying he abandoned we're abandoning our alliances and multinationalism. Trump merely demanded that our allies pay their fair share. That's not abandonment, that is accountability, and NATO will become stronger for it. So I feel that David Smith was completely off in this just rhetoric in this article.
Mike, what about the unorthodox foreign policy that he has? Obviously, relationships with Putin is one thing. Even Kim Jong-un, to a degree, is one thing. Even talking with Iran is one thing. But he's also has his administration negotiating with Hamas, which gives them credibility. Talk to me a little bit about that, the moral implications of that. I know it's old school, if you will, to think that we're not going to negotiate with terrorists and we're not going to talk to the bad guys, and Trump is exactly the opposite. I'm curious to get your take on that.
It's a bit of hypocrisy. Hey, we don't negotiate or talk with terrorists. Guess what? We always have. We talked to the Haqqani network very, very early on in the early days of the Afghan war. We have to talk to our enemies. If you don't talk to your enemies and you go with a policy of isolationism, then you can't come to the table and figure out some mutual agreement for peace or whatever the desired outcome is. So we talk to our enemies, and reestablishing communications with North Korea is not a bad thing. Again, we've got to hear their side. They've got to hear our side and see if there's a middle ground to which we can put conflict in the Indo-Pacific.
So, Mike,
to rest.
Mike, I don't disagree with you, but the thing is middle ground, which could be a compromise at some point, and to compromise with Hamas for what they did on October 7th, that's a fine line about negotiating deals with people that did what they did on October 7th.
Guys, I'll tell you this from my time in combat zones. People have very different views of the world, to include our enemies, and sometimes you've got to see it from their perspective. But I don't think the negotiations with Hamas are to give moral justification to what their stance is. It was to get the hostages back and to stop the needless killing. That's the ultimate outcome. So Hamas, yes, no one's gonna justify what happened on October 7th. That is pure evil, and I do believe that Hamas, down to the last person, needs to be eradicated. But what they're trying to do is they're trying to get those hostages home to their Israeli families and give those families closure.
Hey, Mike, I'm not trying to lead you into an answer, but I am curious about your take here. When I listen to President Trump, particularly recently, as he's making these deals, it seems to me that fundamental in all of the deals that he's trying to make is saving lives. You continue to hear that narrative. I want to save lives. I want to stop the killing. And so that gets me to my question. It seems to me he's making a very good case. He probably would never even be considered, but it seems to me he's making a very good case to be a Nobel Peace Prize winner. That's what I feel when I hear him. I'd love to get your perspective, particularly as someone who's inside and who's been in war zones. Your thoughts?
I love your preparatory clause there. Hey, I'm not going to lead you toward an answer, but I will. No, absolutely. Guys, I think the previous foreign policy, in let's call it the moral virtue signaling of previous administrations, we've got to kill it. We've got to kill it. I mean, what is more ethical? Needless wars or mutual beneficial trade agreements? Trump has made his stance clear. He's not trying to start future wars. He's trying to end them. This policy of peace through strength and advocating for unapologetically the American people. That's what we expect of our president. And given the withdrawal of Afghanistan and that horrific, just disastrous war, he's seen and he doesn't want to repeat those same mistakes. So, the left can scream all they want, this sort of performative outrage over his policies, but he's actually doing what the majority of the American people want. Stop the wars. Yeah. Don't start future wars. Get us back to economic prosperity, which also will aid our ability to influence the world.
Ring the bell. Great
Mike
answer.
Sorelli, yeah, it was just a great answer and great analysis. Really appreciate every single time you're on the show. And thanks for your service to our country. Thank you so very much.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, coming up, Elon Musk has now left the Trump administration. But before he left, how did he feel about the budget? Well, we have his comments ahead on American Sunrise. We are back in a moment, everybody, on a Thursday.
Great shot there of West Palm Beach, where I am right now, here at the RAB West Palm studio. Welcome back to American Sunrise. I'm Bo Davidson, filling in for Dr. Gina. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Well, it's time now for today's health news, sponsored by The Wellness Company. And under the microscope today, alcohol-related deaths in the U.S. are going up drastically. A new study from the American Society of Clinical Oncology in Chicago says that alcohol-linked deaths to cancer have nearly doubled over the last 30 years, between 1990 and 2021. 2021. Alcohol-related cancer deaths increased from 12,000 per year to just more than 23,000. And men account for roughly 70% of alcohol-related deaths in 2021 alone. Experts say that there needs to be more awareness on this issue. I would agree with that. Well, it is a new day in America and a new administration in Washington, D.C. There's a lot of excitement and optimism about the future, but the reality is there's a lot of work to do, especially when it comes to fixing our broken healthcare system. The truth is that the forces that are responsible for breaking our healthcare system aren't simply going to go away. The challenges our system faces won't disappear overnight. Now more than ever, you need to be prepared. And that's where the Wellness Company comes in. Their doctors are medical professionals that you can trust, and their line of prescription medical kits are the gold standard when it comes to keeping you safe and healthy. Whether it is the medical emergency kit, the contagion kit, the first aid kit, or the travel kit, these prescription kits contain an assortment of life-saving medications and guidebooks to assist in the proper use of these medications. From the flu to strep throat, from COVID to the bird flu, from a trip to the beach to a trip overseas, the Wellness Company has a prescription kit designed to keep you and your family safe. MAHA, Make America Healthy Again, starts at home. So do your part and protect the health of you and your family. Just go to twc.health/RAV today and order. One more time, twc.health/RAV. And be sure to use that promo code RAV, R-A-V, to save 10%. Now let's send it over to David in our D.C. bureau.
Thank you, Bo Davidson. Appreciate it. Glad you're not Warren Davidson. I still think about him voting no on the big, beautiful bill.
Indeed.
Thank you, sir. You bet. Now over to D.C. Oh, wait, that's where I'm at. Okay, so I guess we're going to stay right here, where Elon Musk has now left the Trump administration. He's left the building like Elvis. But before he left, he said he is disappointed with how the House budget bill, the budget reconciliation bill, came out. Take a look.
So, I was disappointed to see the massive spending bill, frankly, which increases the budget deficit, not just decrease it, and undermines the work that the D.O.G.E team is doing.
I actually thought that when this big, beautiful bill came along. I mean, everything he's done on D.O.G.E gets wiped out in the first year.
I think a bill can be big or it can be beautiful, but I don't know if it can be both. My personal opinion.
Fair enough. For more, let's bring in Republican strategist Nicole Kipralov. Nicole, thanks for being here on the show. So, look, Elon's got a good point. Anything that's pretty big and is going to have some issues, obviously. One thing about Elon Musk, he tells it like it is, or at least the way he sees it. He's a free thinker, and sometimes that can get him into trouble when he's just kind of going off on X. And in this case, he's not doing the Trump administration any favors by not being necessarily all that big of a fan of this bill, but here we are.
Well, look, what I would say is President Trump himself said that they will be negotiating the bill because certain aspects could be better. But let's take a look at the big picture here. This bill is incredibly pro-working class. It's incredibly pro-America, and it shows how important it is for Congress to get involved and ensure that what the Trump administration is doing has longevity and sustainability. Now, the mainstream media is fear-mongering, saying that this bill is the end of America, but it actually revives America. It delivers a massive tax cut, plus no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. And now, look, when it comes to the deficit, which is ultimately what Elon's critique is here, I think actually Stephen Miller's retort is probably the best argument I've seen so far on this. He said, look, in theory, you could raise taxes on everyone to 90%, and that would solve the deficit problem. But it also means you're raising taxes to 90%, which is insane. You're literally taking all the money out of Americans' pockets. So what he's saying here really puts things into perspective. The deficit isn't going to explode the way that the leftist media has been portraying it, because you actually have to take into consideration all the revenue that will come in from some of the provisions of the bill. And look, the other part of this is you really need the bill to secure the border. And the border crisis is the biggest problem that this country is facing. You can't decrease the deficit without first dealing with the border. that's just not feasible. This bill ensures billions for deportations, the wall. It kicks close to 1.5 million illegal immigrants off of Medicaid. It adds thousands of new Border Patrol agents. So all of this will very much help with this country's financial health. But I do think Elon is right that the next step here is we absolutely must codify the DOGE cuts. And President Trump understands that. He wants to do that. And that's why the White House is taking action. They're going to be sending this DOGE rescissions package to Congress, because codifying the DOGE cuts is the way to ensure that all of the work that Elon did rooting out the waste, fraud, and abuse is not overturned if, God forbid, we get a Democrat in the future.
Nicole, just got about 30 seconds left, but I want to get your quick take on this New York Times headline that says Cuomo proposes $20 minimum wage for New York City. Of course, Andrew Cuomo is running for mayor. He's increasing the minimum wage. So, Nicole, does this move encourage New Yorkers to stay? And is $20 an hour even livable in New York City after taxes? Let's be honest.
No, it's not. And also, I think Cuomo is making this announcement as a distraction from his horrific record while he was governor of New York. We know the nursing home scandal, thousands died on his watch, shutting down the state with his draconian COVID-19 policies. He signed bail reform into law. He implemented sanctuary state policies. So this, I think, is just honestly political grandstanding. He's been a hypocrite about actually raising the minimum wage in the past when he was governor. So I don't think he actually wants to do this. And I don't think it would be good for the state at all.
You're right. And I just hope New Yorkers have, long memories about that nursing home crisis. They really need to think about that before electing a guy like this. Mm-hmm. Well, Nicole Kipralove, thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
Coming up, Jen Psaki and James Comey hit a new low on the air. We have the comments straight ahead on American Sunrise. Stay with us. And the Texas House of Representatives is bringing Christianity back to schools. We will discuss the new bill requiring a display of the Ten Commandments in every Lone Star State classroom when American Sunrise continues.
Welcome back to American Sunrise. I'm American Sunrise contributor Emily Finn. You know that feeling when your coffee actually does what it's supposed to do. It clears your head, lifts your energy, doesn't leave you crashing an hour later. That's what good coffee is supposed to feel like. And that's what you get with 1775 coffee. This coffee is organic, single origin, high altitude, and small batch roasted. That means no toxins, no acidity, no jitters, just smooth, clean coffee that fuels your day without weighing you down. And right now, they're offering a free starter kit, 3 bags of premium coffee, plus exclusive coffee merch, including a matte black tumbler, a frother, a gold scoop, or reusable K-cup filter. You pay for 2 bags of coffee, and $17.75 covers the rest. Whether you drink whole bean, ground coffee, or K-cup pods, you choose your option. This means you're paying less than $1 a cup for coffee quality that you're not going to find in most stores. Head to 1775coffee.com/Rav and grab your starter kit while the offer is still available. All right, now that we are caffeinated, it's time to stay awake, not woke. And who is woke today? Well, that would be former FBI Director James Comey and former White House press secretary turned MSNBC host Jen Psaki. Listen to what they had to say about Comey's new book, Conservative Podcasters and Islamic Extremists. Listen to this.
So this is your 3rd book that you've written. What a fun process. I think you've told me you enjoy writing fiction. It's fiction, but it centers around a right-wing influencer who directs his followers to commit violence, which feels, it's not exactly topical in this moment, but it feels like something we've been talking about for several years. What inspired you? Is there a specific moment or person that inspired you to write about that storyline?
Well, it's been a feature of my work, especially at the FBI, and I'm trying to write stuff that grips people but is also real. Mm-hmm. And this is a threat we've been dealing with since the Islamic State came on the scene in 2014 and was using the internet to reach troubled people and move them to violence. Well, that threat has now gotten much larger because podcasts are everywhere, and it's a tool of people in white identity extremism trying to motivate young men especially to move towards violence because they're being replaced, they're being attacked, America's under assault. This is a real feature of the FBI's work, and so I thought it would make it a good setting for a crime novel.
This is a perfect example of why the left doesn't understand young men. Let us know what you think on Rumble or Getter. Hop on and let your voice be heard. Coming up, the 10 Commandments may soon be displayed in classrooms throughout the great state of Texas. We'll take a closer look at the legislation making its way to Governor Greg Abbott's desk after the break. Stay with us.
created the heaven and the earth.
Welcome back to American Sunrise. Well, it's time now for our Moment of Faith, brought to us by Lee Greenwood and the God Bless the USA Bible. And in focus today, the Texas House of Representatives is bringing Christianity back to public schools, passing a bill mandating every classroom display the 10 Commandments. The legislation is now on its way to the Senate floor for final consideration before heading to Governor Greg Abbott's desk. He is expected to sign it into law shortly. Democrat lawmakers in Texas have pushed back on the requirement, arguing that it violates parental rights of families with students of different faiths and promotes Christianity over other religions. To discuss this, let's welcome into American Sunrise Pastor C.L. Bryant. He's a pastor, a filmmaker, and an author. Pastor, thank you for being with us this morning.
Really glad to be with you, and thank you so much.
Absolutely. Well, Pastor, you know, firstly, I think we could all learn a really great degree of daily conduct from following the 10 Commandments, just in a general sense. And, you know, likely they cover the most basic things of behavior. Don't lie, don't steal, don't kill, honor your father and mother. These have lasted epochs of time. Do you agree with the Texas House's decision to place the commandments back into schools?
Absolutely. In fact, I'm surprised that Governor Abbott didn't have them put all 613 of the laws in schools. The first 5, though, of the specific 10 deal with God's relationship and man's relationship with God. And then the second 5 deal with man's relationship with one another. And it begins with honor thy father and mother, as you mentioned a little earlier. The second part of those 10 that we revere began certainly with a teaching of honoring your father and your mother. Yes, that is Exodus 20 and 12. And so the one thing that we must understand is that this country was founded on these principles, and actually the essence of all civilized law around the world is rooted and grounded in these principles. Certainly, if all other types of ideas and religions can be taught in our public schools, certainly the foundational principles of our faith, Christian faith in this nation, should be displayed in our schools as well.
Pastor, I think you make a great point, but of course the Democrats say that this is a violation of parental rights for children who may practice faiths other than Judaism or Christianity. We as conservatives and Christians have been all over liberal schools for indoctrinating and placing pornographic images in schools. So do you think there's any merit to the opposition argument that it violates the Establishment Clause?
Of course not, because the one thing that Christians should not tolerate, and I want to use that word pointedly, tolerate, is being the beacon of freedom for every faith that is on this earth. It is this nation, a Christian nation, that opens the door for them to practice their faith freely. And we should refuse to be handcuffed and handicapped in our own faith simply by proclaiming it as others do. And so I think that they have a very, even though they may make it a strong argument, logically and with common sense, it is not a strong argument because it is not fair across the board, and certainly not when it comes to dealing with Christians.
Right, and we have had so many arguments over separation of church and state, but of course there seems to be this just abandonment of the founding principles of our country and the Judeo-Christian roots of it. The courts have struck down similar displays of the 10 Commandments in schools in Louisiana and Kentucky, so Pastor, I wonder where this will wind up, but it's not totally clear how the courts apply the law. Some Republicans point to Kennedy versus Bremerton, where Coach Joe Kennedy, as we know, was allowed to pray on a school's football field as supporting their reasoning. How do you think the courts will look at this?
You know, the courts can make their rulings, but then they must enforce those rulings. And we in our separate states, all 50 of us, and even the territories that lie about, we make our government begins at home. Government begins locally. And so this is what we must understand, is that we, the people, are still in charge of this country. And we, the people, must, in fact, make certain that our core value principles are honored in this nation through our elected officials. And I do believe we have a president now in office that will be a champion of those particular ideas. And I believe we have a champion in office now that will stand with and beside Christians and Christian principles.
And you know what, Pastor, too, I was thinking about just that commandment, thou shalt not covet. You know, so many of our young people are tempted to covet thy neighbor, covet wealth, covet the riches, and that's how they can wind up in drugs, gangs, abusive situations. That commandment alone, I think, would teach us a lot of good, to be quite honest with you. And I think for that reason alone, it should be taught in public schools. But we'll just have to see how the courts decide. But I agree with you, from a principle and a moral foundation, these should be out there for sure in public spaces so we can see them. Thank you, Pastor. I appreciate your time, and God bless you.
God bless you all.
We'll be back with the second hour of American Sunrise in just 2 minutes. Stick around.
Introducing the limited edition God Bless the USA Bible, inspired by Lee Greenwood's hit song and the most recognized patriotic anthem in America, God Bless the USA. The God Bless the USA large print leather-bound King James Bible also contains America's founding documents, the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, and the Pledge of Allegiance, along with a handwritten chorus to Lee Greenwood's song, God Bless the USA. With its large print and slim design, this Bible invites you to explore God's Word anywhere, anytime. The God Bless the USA Bible makes the perfect gift and cherished family heirloom keepsake to pass on to future generations. Designed for an easy reading experience in the trusted King James Version translation, this large print Bible is perfect to take to church, Bible study, work, and for traveling. Order yours today at GodBlessTheUSABible.com.
Ahead on the second hour of American Sunrise, Elon Musk is out in the Trump administration, but will we see him again in politics? Plus, GOP Senator Rick Scott says he plans to vote no on that big, beautiful bill in its current form. What changes are needed to pass it in the upper chamber? Find out ahead. Also, a new poll shows the U.S. is in uncharted territory. But does it mean the U.S. is on the right or the wrong track? We'll discuss later on in the show. Hour 2 of American Sunrise starts right now.
Good morning, America.
Welcome to American Sunrise.
Whether it's culture,
we have breaking news to share with you.
Politics.
President Trump is joining us live now from Florida.
We've got you covered.
This is what it looks like to be a patriot.
We have to protect the American family.
The American dream is still alive.
I'm David Brody.
I'm Terrance.
And I'm Dr. Gina.
Welcome back, everybody, to the second hour of American Sunrise. I'm David Brody, coming to you from the deep state. As a matter of fact, I'm definitely in the deep state because James Comey is holding me hostage at gunpoint. He's off to my left. You can't see him right now. Let's bring in Bo Davidson, who's in West Palm, filling in for Dr. G. T. Bates in our Denver newsroom. Good morning to you both, gentlemen. I don't know, that didn't even make grammatical sense, but we are in the triple box, and that's good. 3 men in a box, 3 men and a baby. Good morning, Bo Davidson. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, David. It was great to, just in the break there, talk about our moms and what they see. So I know my mom's probably watching right now. I got to give you a shout out, and for any mistakes that I make today, I sincerely apologize.
That's good.
That is hilarious. Hey, Mom, by the way, not to be outdone. Good morning, Mom. Good morning, Pop. Both parents probably watching as well. But guys, look, the big story of the day, Elon Musk is set to leave the Trump administration. That's likely going to happen tomorrow. He has said that it is time for him to move on. We'll talk a bit more about it in news. But David, you seem to think that this is probably indicative of some of the waves that have been going on, some of the problems that arose following his entrance as Doge and his relationship, I guess, if you will, with some of the cabinet secretaries.
Well, look, I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist, right, to figure out that the cabinet secretaries weren't necessarily big fans of Elon Musk going on Twitter or X or whatever and saying, this is gone, this is gone. Well, really? Well, hello, I'm a cabinet secretary. Maybe I should have a say in what our department's going to do. But Elon Musk was just throwing stuff out there. It did ruffle some feathers. Yes, feathers. Did I just say feathers? Anyhow, feathers. And so, look, ultimately, it caused a little consternation between two. But look, he did a great job, obviously. And this idea that the media wants to say that Elon Musk is out. He's out of the Trump administration. It's like he's being forced out, like he left the building like Elvis or something. But it's just not true. Bottom line is he was going to leave anyhow. I think it was sped up a little bit because of some of the differences with cabinet secretaries. But look, bottom line is he's Elon. I mean, he does his thing, Bo. He does his thing.
And I think he's been a pivotal fixture, not just in this administration, but if you go back, the purchase of Twitter, I think was a watershed moment. You think about what it was for free speech. This man has put this all on his own shoulders. He didn't have to do it. Who else did that same thing? Donald Trump. So when you think about someone who came in, and look, you're not going to be liked if you're taking things away from people, but we have to point out where that waste, fraud, and abuse is. So you know what? No one's going to love you when you're doing that, but at the same time, it's a good thing for the American public. So it is what it is. I think, David, you pointed it out, his candor and his honesty are refreshing, even when he disagrees with the president.
All right, so let's flesh out this story because it is one of the big stories of the day. The head of the Department of Government Efficiency, Elon Musk, who we've been talking about, leaving his position this week to return to his primary jobs at Tesla, SpaceX, and X. Musk was brought on as a special government employee on January 20th. Under that designation, he was expected to perform his duties for 130 days. That time, by the way, officially ends tomorrow. In an X post announcing his departure, Musk writes, "I would like to thank President Donald Trump for the opportunity to reduce wasteful spending. The DOGE mission will only strengthen over time as it becomes a way of life throughout the government." Musk has said that his goal is to save $2 trillion through his efforts with DOGE. While he admits he'll likely not achieve that sort of haul, Musk does say he anticipates savings of $150 billion in fiscal year 2026 just from fraud, waste, and abuse that his agency has uncovered. Meantime, President Trump taking his deal-making skills to Capitol Hill, saying he plans to negotiate aspects of the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill that's now in the U.S. Senate. The measure that the House passed last week is facing some pushback from Senate Republicans. Plus, there's Elon Musk, who's also criticizing the measure.
I'm not happy about certain aspects of it, but I'm thrilled by other aspects of it. That's the way they go. It's very big. It's the big, beautiful bill. But the beautiful is because of all of the things we have. The biggest thing being, I would say, the level of tax cutting that we're going to be doing.
I was disappointed to see the massive spending bill, frankly, which increases the budget deficit, not just decrease it, and undermines the work that the DOGE team is doing. I think a bill can be big or it can be beautiful, but I don't know if it can be both.
And while President Trump plans to offer his input to improve the spending plan and get it passed, there's also reporting out this morning that the White House is going to send Congress a package to formalize DOGE cuts that target federal spending, and that could happen as soon as next week. While President Trump deals with funding the U.S. government, he now also has about a week and a half to retool one of the centerpieces of his plan to revitalize the U.S. economy. The Court of International Trade is putting President Trump's tariffs on ice, saying that he overstepped his authority by imposing the duties on imports. The ruling, in effect, immediately invalidates all of the president's tariffs. The administration is appealing Wednesday's decision and questioning the court's authority. The three-judge panel says, and I'm quoting here, the court does not pass upon the wisdom or likely effectiveness of the president's use of tariffs as leverage. That use is impermissible not because it's unwise or ineffective, but because federal law does not allow it, so say the judges. That's a quick check of your headlines. Now, let's get you back over to David.
I appreciate it, T. Bates. All right. Senator Rick Scott of Florida says he's a no vote on that one big, beautiful bill without some significant changes. Scott says if they brought it to the floor right now, there's not a chance no, he didn't say that part. There's not a chance it would get to 51 votes. Take a look.
Oh, absolutely. I'd vote no. This bill doesn't have it. If they brought it to the floor like right now, there's not a chance it'll get the 51 votes it needs. So look, we all know we have to balance the budget. Look, we know that it's getting harder to sell our treasuries. We know interest rates are going up. We want to get interest rates down. We get inflation under control. That means balance the budget.
All right, let's talk about this more now with Jacqueline Colbeth, a GOP strategist, also VP of Strategy and Communications at the 5 Point Strategy Group. Jacqueline, great to have you with us. So, look, Rick Scott, okay, you're negotiating for certain things here because you got Rick Scott, Ron Johnson, Rand Paul, Mike Lee, Mitch McConnell, who the heck knows where he is today. You got a lot of people that have concerns about this bill. So the Senate's going to have to figure this out because this one big, beautiful bill can't go down in one big, beautiful ball of flames at this point. Good morning to you, by the way.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. What I would say to this is let the negotiations begin. And anybody who's been in the private sector understands that when negotiations begin, they can be a little rough, they can be a little ugly, there's a lot of tension, but that is not a bad thing. Without Senator Scott, without Senator Lee, without Senator Johnson, the Republicans would just be like the Democrats, and there would be no tension. They would all vote identically, and you would get crap for a bill. So this doesn't intimidate me so much, just having a business background, knowing you need to have that back and forth. But the main issue is cutting spending. It always has been since the day I voted at 18. And it never seems to happen. And the American public gets so lit up about this because if we ran our households like the government runs their business, we would be destitute. We'd be filing for bankruptcy. We would be on the street. We'd lose everything. So I look at these senators who want to make some changes to the bill as the forcing function that will lead other senators to join in the negotiations for a better bill.
You just heard President Trump say that he is going to also be joining in the negotiations to try to help get this bill over the finish line. What leverage do you think he's going to ultimately use, and how much sway will his input have on these senators?
I do think he will have a lot of sway with these senators, to answer your first question, because to be totally frank, if you vote against this, you've got a primary on your back now. This isn't like the old days where the same Republicans get in every time unchallenged. We saw this with Pete Hegseth's nomination and people like Joni Ernst. And people tend to come around when Trump starts to negotiate. He is the master of negotiation. And now people on the Republican side need to be wary, because you will be primary.
Well, speaking of primaries, Jacqueline, let's go on to the 2026 midterm elections. Democratic Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut claims that Republicans will, quote, get smoked in the midterms if they pass the president's big, beautiful bill. Murphy making these comments on MSNBC this week. Let's take a listen to it.
Donald Trump kind of can say jump, and everybody else in the Senate probably says how high. So the Republican Party is the Republican Party today, and right now he's got an enormous amount of power. Now, if he forces these senators, as he did in the House, to vote for $15 billion of Medicaid cuts, and the corruption continues at the level that it is, I think they're going to get smoked in the midterms.
So, Jacqueline, do you agree with Senator Murphy that the Republicans will get smoked in the midterms if the big, beautiful bill is passed?
Well, I tend not to pay much credence to men who run off with their social media managers, so I just start by saying that. I also think Senator Murphy is the latest Democratic hack that they want to trot out. And something I would posit to Senator Murphy is people aren't going to be remembering what Republicans are squabbling about in this bill. What they're going to remember is senators like Chris Murphy and what they voted against. People underestimate. You vote for things, you vote against things, and there's a lot to be shown by those who vote against it. So, Chris Murphy, what I would say to you is you're the one getting smoked because you're the one in your party who wants higher taxes, over-regulation, and border insecurity. So I just want to remind Chris, when he's not trying to create his new persona on social media, that there's a flip side to all of that. And if you're still using your 2013 playbook, which is when you came into office, you need to get a newer edition.
Yeah, right. Hey, 30 seconds or less, Jacqueline, real quick. Elon Musk leaving the White House, going to Mars. I'm not quite sure where he's going. Your take on this?
David, there is nothing more frustrating as someone who's spent much time in the private sector than having your boss task you with finding cuts. You find all the cuts, you find them fast, you bring it to your boss or you bring it to the powers that be, and they're like, yeah, thanks for working on this. You found a lot of good stuff, but, we're just going to take like a fraction of your recommendations. So Elon Musk has every right to be frustrated. Here's a man who sacrificed time on many profitable businesses to come and do what I think is one of the greatest civic duties of all time, weeding out waste, fraud, and abuse. So I can appreciate why he is frustrated. It's the same reason everyone in America gets frustrated with government. We offer you a good solution, and then you take it, you twist it, and you come up with a worse one.
That's right. I thought you were going to say crap again. Come up with crap. Jacqueline Colbeth, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. Yeah, I loved Elon Musk's shirt during that CBS interview, Occupy Mars, which I thought was pretty funny. Okay, Jacqueline, great to have you. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Jacqueline.
Thanks, Jacqueline.
Thank you.
All right, great stuff. Coming up, CBS News' Scott Pelley, speaking of crap, goes on an angry tirade against President Trump. The latest case of TDS, we all know what that is, Trump derangement syndrome. That's next. Plus, tensions between President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin are heating up, and it has nothing to do with him being shirtless on a horse. What is the relationship between the United States and Russia stand? Where does it stand? We're going to discuss that later in the show. We're back on a Thursday in a moment.
Welcome back to American Sunrise. I'm American Sunrise contributor Emily Finn. It's great to have you with us this morning. Time now to drain the swamp, and this morning we are flushing out CBS News reporter Scott Pelley, who in a recent Wake Forest University commencement speech attacked President Trump and the MAGA base. While he didn't mention anyone by name, Pelley claims recent government interference in free press and threats to civil rights and voting rights are threatening liberty in America today. Some critics describing the speech as, quote, angry, unhinged, and a national disgrace. This comes as President Trump is suing CBS News, where Pelley has worked in various roles for more than 30 years, over a deceptively edited 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris. Take a look at that commencement speech.
Our sacred rule of law is under attack. Journalism is under attack. Universities are under attack. Freedom of speech is under attack. And insidious fear is reaching through our schools, our businesses, our homes, and into our private thoughts.
All right, let's bring in David, Terrance, and Bo for discussion. You know, Bo, there's nothing like telling a group of new graduates that they are under attack in order to inspire them. I mean, come on. This is not the messaging for this type of setting.
Yeah, Emily, and I'm of the opinion that free speech does not equal good speech. I think it was one of the godfathers of free speech, Alexander Meiklejohn, who said that essentially it's not that everyone shall speak, but that everything worth saying shall be said. And in this case, I think Scott Pelley should have kept quiet.
Yeah, round of applause for Scott Pelley during that speech, right? Oh, wait, no, sorry, there were no applause. Every time he said, journalists are under attack, everybody's staying silent.
Yeah.
This guy, I mean, talk about elitism. I mean, that's the poster boy for elitism, literally. And I keep saying this, if you look him up in the dictionary, you see a picture of Scott Pelley, and then I think to myself, wait a minute, there are no pictures in the dictionary, but that's a separate matter. Bottom line is that this guy is off his rocker, but here's the good news, is that Donald Trump is a disinfectant to all of these folks. I mean, he's like a can of Raid. And they all come out. And, and Scott Pelley all of a sudden says all of this. Let's be honest, guys. If Mitt Romney was president, if a George W. Bush type person was president, would Scott Pelley be out there talking like this? Absolutely not. He's doing that because he's ticked off at Trump for exposing him and all of his other liberal comrades. That's why he's doing it. So this is a disinfectant. And T. Bates, I'm happy about that.
Yeah, it's good that there's pushback, that there's a different narrative in the White House than what the mainstream media is trying to push. But let's just be honest. It's a graduation speech. And I think all four of us, all four of us, yes, have been through that. I remember my time, couldn't tell you what the speaker was talking about. And for me, it was Robert Reich. I remember that it was him because he was short. And I was like, can you even see over the podium? But couldn't tell you what he talked about, didn't think of it. And as I remember, I was more concerned about, I hope we're going someplace better than TGI Fridays for lunch after all of this. I suspect that's what many of the graduates at Wake Forest were thinking too.
Yeah, good point, Terrance. I'm not sure what we expected. I mean, Pelley has been at CBS for more than 30 years. He is the product of left-wing mainstream media brainwashing. We want to know what you think, though. Let us know on Rumble or Getter. Hop on and let your voice be heard. Coming up on American Sunrise, where is Bitcoin headed? Did Vice President J.D. Vance's keynote speech at the Bitcoin conference in Las Vegas yesterday boost investor confidence? We're going to take a live look at the big board up next. And plus, a dire warning from Russia after President Trump said Moscow is playing with fire. What does this mean for the state of the war with Ukraine? We will discuss coming up.
out to Belmont, North Carolina. I've been there a time or two. This is suburban Charlotte, North Carolina. It's a really cool little town. Some good little eateries there as well. Always good to see Belmont, North Carolina there. We're getting you ready for the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange. It's going to ring here in about 6 minutes. Take a look at the board. Pretty good news all the way around. The Dow, S&P 500, and the NASDAQ all up right now in pre-market trading. Again, we'll let you know how things look once the bell rings. We'll also try to get you a look at Bitcoin. Vice President J.D. Vance, of course, spoke at a Bitcoin conference yesterday in Las Vegas, so we'll see if he was able to move the needle at all. All of that coming up here in just a little bit. There you have the Bitcoin numbers and some of the other crypto numbers out there. Anyway, let's get you over to David now. David, that was a super expansive lead into our financial segment coming up. You didn't realize I knew Bitcoin and all that other stuff, did you?
I did not know that. You're so tech savvy. You're so hip. You're so, you're just an amazing human being, T. Bates. And I mean that, darn it. That's not even
I love you too, man.
Like Biden. I'm not being facetious. Really, I'm not. I'm not being facetious. All right. Thank you, sir. All right. I don't know how to make this transition, so I'm just not going to. Let's head over to sacredhumanhealth.com, shall we, and discover the incredible benefits of their grass-fed beef liver capsules. Grass-fed beef liver is one of the greatest concentrations of nutrients you can add to your diet. It plays a vital role in supporting your heart, brain, and immune system while boosting energy and improving overall health. Sacred Human's beef liver capsules offer a natural alternative to synthetic multivitamins, providing nutrients in a form that your body knows how to use efficiently. Many customers are just thrilled with the noticeable boost in energy and vitality. Hey, I need both of those. They've already experienced all that. So here's what you do. You visit sacredhumanhealth.com today and use code SUNRISE for 10% off. You can explore their full range of all natural supplements. For example, you got sleep collagen, immunity, magnesium with vitamin D, which are all designed to help you on your path to optimal health. So once again, sacredhumanhealth.com. I'm pounding the desk. I'm so serious about it. Sacredhumanhealth.com, darn it. Promo code SUNRISE for 10% off. And so for more, let's bring in the CEO of Sacred Human Health, Trevor Comstock. Trevor, great to have you back on the show. I love the inspiration story. I've heard it before, but many viewers have not. So tell us the inspiration behind starting Sacred Human. Good morning to you.
Yeah, thanks so much, David. I appreciate it. So for anyone that's not too familiar with us, just a little background on us. We created Sacred Human to essentially offer health supplements that are clean, natural, and made with integrity. So when we launched about a year ago, our goal was really just to provide high quality and affordable products while kind of breaking away from the big corporate model that oftentimes prioritizes profit over health. So I've said it before, but unfortunately what we see quite a bit is that a lot of the larger companies within the industry cut corners. So they go ahead and market their products as healthy and advertise them as healthy. But if you take a closer look and look at the food label or the supplement facts, you'll find preservatives, artificial additives, binders, and just overall ingredients that don't really do anything beneficial for your health. And then on top of that, many tend to outsource their production overseas, oftentimes to China, where quality control can be pretty questionable. So at least in that regard, we took the opposite route, and we always promise to make sure that everything's produced right here in the USA, and we only use ingredients that we trust. So also, you mentioned it before, but I did want to touch on our flagship product, which is our 100% grass-fed beef liver. And what's amazing about this specific product is that it's one of the most nutrient-dense sources on the planet, packed with essential vitamins and minerals. So, for example, it's an incredible source of vitamin A, which is crucial for vision, skin health, as well as immune function. And then it also has B vitamins, which boost energy and brain function. And then on top of that, liver is known for being very rich in iron, which is excellent for preventing anemia, and provides important trace minerals like copper and zinc. So These will all do things like support your metabolism. If you look at our reviews, people oftentimes just rave about the energy boost that it gives them, but it also enhances detoxification and just promotes overall vitality. And what's amazing about beef liver that I always like to highlight is that it's one of the most bioavailable sources of nutrients. So your body can actually absorb these nutrients as opposed to like taking a greens powder or synthetic multivitamin where your body oftentimes just flushes out, excuse me, a lot of those nutrients. So right off the bat, you're getting a much better bang for your buck just based on the nutrient profile and the way that your body can absorb them.
Sounds good. Well, Trevor, real quick, where the website one more time. We got about 10 seconds, but where is that again?
Yeah, you can go to sacredhumanhealth.com or just type in Sacred Human to Google. Will be the first page that pops up. And you can use code Sunrise for 10% off any one-time order. So yeah, sacredhumanhealth.com.
Very nice, Trevor. Appreciate you as always. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
T. Bates in Denver now, the opening bell. It is sponsored by AMAC.
The Association of Mature American Citizens is the conservative voice for Americans 50 and older. AMAC is fighting for the values that you hold dear. Join today. Together, we can write the course of America.
Well, the applause is already underway at the New York Stock Exchange, which means the opening bell is going to ring here momentarily, and then we'll get an idea of exactly how things are looking. First Eagle Investments is at the podium today, so let's hope that it's going to be a good day for investors. I can tell you the pre-market trading already looking pretty positive. All of the major indices are in the green at the moment. All right, there you hear it, ladies and gentlemen. The bell is ringing, so let's see how the markets are looking. And just like that, the Dow, S&P 500, and NASDAQ all are up. You can see the only blemish on the screen at the moment is crude oil. It is down rather slightly. Hopefully, things will continue as they are today, and it will be another strong day of trading, particularly for those of you who are investing. Still to come here on American Sunrise, it has been a really busy and productive month for President Trump. So does a new poll prove that his hard work is paying off? You'll have to stick around to find out. Plus, why is Elon Musk disappointed with the Republicans' big, beautiful bill? His answer coming up later in the show. Stick around. More American Sunrise coming your way after this break.
Welcome back to American Sunrise. I'm Bo Davidson. Well, tax day may have passed, but for millions of Americans, the real trouble is just beginning. If you missed the April 15th deadline or still owe back taxes, the IRS is ramping up enforcement. Every day you wait only makes things worse. With over 5,000 new tax liens filed daily and tools like property seizures, bank levies, and wage garnishments, the IRS is applying pressure at levels we haven't seen in years. Increased administrative scrutiny means collections are moving fast. What's the good news? Well, there's still time for Tax Network USA to help. Self-employed or a business owner, even if your books are a mess, they've got it covered. Tax Network USA specializes in cleaning up financial chaos and getting you back on track fast. Even after the deadline, it's not too late to regain control. Your consultation is completely free, and acting now could stop penalties, threatening letters, and surprise levies before they escalate. Just call 1-800-905-8000 or visit tnusa.com/RAV. You may have missed April 15th, but you haven't run out of options. Let Tax Network USA help before the IRS makes the next move. It's time now for the political pulse of America. And here's the beat today, folks. Americans feel like the United States is on the right track again. A Rasmussen Reports poll released this week found that 48% of people believe the country is heading in a positive direction. Also, 47% of people believe America is going down the wrong track. Now, that number is the highest rating for the country since Rasmussen Reports started doing these right track, wrong track surveys about 20 years ago. It's also a boost from the Biden administration, as the Daily Signal reports only 32% of people believe the U.S. was heading in the right direction just last year. Meanwhile, President Trump's biggest donor during his presidential campaign, Tesla CEO Elon Musk, says his time in the Trump administration has come to an end. This announcement comes after Musk recently said he's disappointed in the big, beautiful bill. Listen to this.
So, I was disappointed to see the massive spending bill, frankly. Which increases the budget deficit, not just decrease it, and undermines the work that the D.O.G.E team is doing.
I actually thought that when this big, beautiful bill came along. I mean, everything he's done on D.O.G.E gets wiped out in the first year.
I think a bill can be big or it can be beautiful, but I don't know if it can be both. My personal opinion.
Well, joining us now with his take, a man never shy to share his opinion, the host of America's Voice Live, the great Steve Gruber. Steve, do you share any of Elon Musk's disappointment in this bill? Can it be big and beautiful at the same time? And as a bookend on that, give him a performance grade, if you will, in his time at D.O.G.E.
The performance for Elon is pretty decent, I think. Look, my email, we were just talking about this today on the program before you guys come on. My email is full of people going, where are the D.O.G.E cuts in legislation? Where are the cuts being made by the Republican Congress? Where are the Republicans? I'm hearing that every single day. I'm hearing it in my emails. I'm seeing it on people that I talk to. They're like, we elected the Republicans and they're doing nothing again. People are frustrated. People are angry, Bo. Yep. They are. They're like, where are the cuts? And obviously Elon Musk is disappointed. Now, having said that, we hear that there's going to be one of these rescission bills coming next week for almost $10 billion. But $10 billion, that's a long way from $1 trillion or $2 trillion. So Elon Musk came with a lot of promise. And look, they've identified a lot of issues. But the fact of the matter is all the spending in this big, beautiful bill, according to Ron Johnson and Rand Paul and Senator Rick Scott of Florida, all of those guys say, look, they have completely reversed anything. Anything good that D.O.G.E would have done is being destroyed in this bill. I don't think the Senate is going to support this bill. I think Elon Musk is frustrated. I think a lot of Americans are frustrated because nothing has happened.
Steve, even apart from this big, beautiful bill, let's talk a bit more specifically about D.O.G.E and the framework that's being created. Do you think it's going to ultimately be codified? Is this a one-trick pony, or will this become part of American government tradition? This idea of D.O.G.E going in and continuing to cut, continuing to find fraud, waste, and abuse, continuing to force the hand of lawmakers in terms of trying to make them better stewards of our money.
Well, Terrance, I'm just doing some math over here. What are we at? $37 trillion in debt right now, roughly. According to Rand Paul and Ron Johnson and others, that's going to increase by $2 trillion a year or more in our debt, which will take us to $60 trillion of debt or more 10 years from now. It's unsustainable. Look, for anybody who missed this history lesson, here it is for you. When they had a debt crisis in Greece, the government came in and said, look, anybody that has over $1 million in savings or a retirement account, we're going to come in and we're going to take half. They just went into the banks, they took half. If you don't think that can happen in America, you're fooling yourself. So if you're saving your money and you're working hard and you got a 401k or a Roth IRA, whatever you might have, and you don't think the government can come in and raid your piggy bank, you're not paying attention. So this spending has to get under control, or we're going to have a debt crisis, and Social Security will be crippled, Medicaid will be crippled, Medicare will be crippled. It's time for some sober assessments of what's happening, and we're spending too much. We need to go back to 2019 spending levels. We need to increase our revenue, and not with new taxes, but with invigorated economic performance and GDP. Otherwise, we're going to pay a price in this country like we've never paid before. You know, and I've heard people say this. I have. The only way things are going to change is if people feel real pain. Who feels real pain these days? Our kids, the ones that have instant gratification on their phones, that have drive-through food joints on every corner of every major city in America where you can get 5,000 calories for $5. Kids that want instant gratification and everything. Until there's real pain in this country, like the depression type pain, is anything ever going to change? Until we just get a complete smackdown of where we are, you just have to wonder. I mean, I've heard about this. David and I have been, you've talked about this before. You've heard this your whole life. Oh, we're going to cut spending. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. No, not really. I don't think so.
Hey, Steve, I'm going to interrupt you really quickly because it looks like Tom Homan is going to the microphone outside the White House. Let's listen in.
You're walking the streets of this country, especially here illegally. So, yeah, we... Like all the support we can get. I think we got the support of the majority of American people, according to the polls, right?
Stephen Miller told ICE officials that they need to be arresting 3,000 people a day. How soon do you expect that to actually happen? Is that enough?
Look, I've said from day one, you guys ask me this question a lot of times, am I happy with the removal numbers, or am I happy with the arrest numbers? And I've been fair with you. I said numbers are better than Biden, but they're not good enough. I said I'm not satisfied with the numbers, so we need to increase. I mean, you look at the recent numbers, we've got like 600,000 illegal aliens walking the streets of this country with criminal convictions or pending criminal charges. So, yeah, we need to do more. President Trump made a promise to American people. American people put him in office on this top issue was immigration enforcement. So, yeah, I have not been satisfied with the numbers. Kristi Noem, Steve Miller, myself, we all want more numbers. So we've increased the teams a lot. We're increased targeting a lot, so we expect a fast increase in number of arrests every day.
DHS says that assaults on ICE officers are up over 400%. Is that track with what you see?
Yeah, the assaults on ICE officers are high. The doxing of ICE officers are at an all-time high. And people always complain, some of you here say, why are they wearing masks? Because they're trying to protect themselves and their families. They got a dangerous job to do, and they're being doxed every day across this country. I've experienced myself 100 times, but I'm willing to take that because of the position I hold. And, we're not running a popularity contest. We're trying to enforce the laws enacted by Congress, doing it in a smart, effective way. So, yeah, the results are up, but it won't be tolerated. We've already shown you put a hands on an ICE officer, you can be prosecuted to the highest extent of the law. So we're not playing with that, with any threats against ICE officers. Doxing, we're going to look at doxing. We're going to take action on that also. Anything else?
What kind of numbers do you have for some deportations?
The last number I saw was right around 8,500. As far as the CBP home app, there's thousands of deportations where they're not going through the app, they're just leaving. Intelligence reports showing traffic going south, not only through Mexico, but even the Darien Gap. So there's a lot of self-deportation. I hope they take advantage of it because, they can leave on their own terms, get their affairs together, or we can go find them and formally deport them, which is going to set a bar against them coming back to the country under a legal program. So they should self-deport and give themselves an opportunity maybe in the future to come back as a visitor or a tourist, or maybe they have a U.S. citizen child that can petition for them. But if we have to formally go through the process of seeking them out and formally deporting them, there's a statutory bar placed against them from ever coming back to the country. I think that as they see the ICE arrests in the interior increase, which is going to see a vast increase in arrests, I think they're going to realize we can do this under ICE control. We can arrest you at a place and remove you, or you can take it upon yourself to work with ICE, get your arrangements in order, whether it's your home, your belongings, your family, and leave on your own. We'll give you a plane flight. We'll give you some money. Or we just go through the ICE process. I think the more they see ICE out there in the streets arresting people and holding them accountable, the more they'll take advantage of doing the right thing. Right now, it's a lot of Mexican nationals.
Part of Elon Musk's scheme was finding thousands of people. No way to stop the flow for them to go stop the
I didn't hear the question.
Part of Elon Musk's scheme found thousands of people were using the same Social Security number. So one of the main reasons they're able to work is they're using false Social Security numbers. There's no way to stop the money flow to cause them, if they don't have a job, they'll be run out.
We're all over that. We're all over the misuse of Social Security numbers, and we're tracking that. And that actually comes up, provides a lot of leads for us to go find these people.
So what's the reason why ICE is apparently targeting Marcus and giving assurances that that's not going to work?
Say that again?
Apparently there's been a lot of ICE action activity yesterday in Kentucky and Marcus State. Is that, can you confirm that? Is that being done for any political reason?
No. Martha's Vineyards isn't off the table. It's part of the country. We're doing immigration actions all throughout the country. We're not saying we're going to favor one area over another. We're all over the country, in every neighborhood, in every city. And you're going to see an expansion of that. Like I just said, we're going to increase the teams greatly. So you're going to see more teams on the streets you've never seen before. You're going to see more worksite enforcement than you've ever seen in the history of this nation. You got sanctuary cities, or I said, we're going to flood the zone. If we can't arrest a bad guy in the jail, one agent arrests a bad guy in the jail in the safety and security of the jail, which is safer for the officer, safer for the alien, and safer for the community, okay, you're going to force him in the community to find him. If we can't find him in the community, we're going to find him at the work site. So we're going to flood the zone, and sanctuary cities will get exactly what they don't want. More agents in the neighborhoods, more worksite enforcement, because we're going to get the bad guy. If you want to make it difficult for us, we'll do it. It'll take more time. It's less efficient, but we're not going to stop until we find that guy.
So is that just sort of a general sweep of the tourist businesses and what businesses there are in Kentucky?
There is no sanctuary for illegal aliens in this country. You can call it a sanctuary jurisdiction all you want. It's a bunch of crap, and we all know it. Sanctuary jurisdiction says, well, we want to protect the immigrant community. We want the victims and witnesses of crime to be able to come to the police, report a crime without fear that we're working with ICE. That is a bunch of garbage, because victims and witnesses of crime don't want the bad guy in their neighborhood either. They want us in the jail arresting that bad guy. That'd be made much easier, much more efficient. But because they're forcing it in the neighborhoods, more non-criminal targets are being arrested, because ICE agents are not going to walk away from illegal alien. You force us to go find a bad guy, many times we're with others. At a work site, go look for the bad guy, there's 10 more illegal aliens there, they're coming too. So I don't want to hear sanctuary cities complaining, well, look at all these collateral arrests and non-criminal targets are arrested. You forced me in that position? So we're going to force the law. Unlike the last administration, Secretary Mayorkas told ICE, you can't enforce immigration law. If they're not convicted of a serious crime, you can't arrest them for just being here illegally. That sent a message to the entire world. You can enter this country illegally, which is a crime, but as long as you don't get convicted of a serious crime, you're free. No one's looking for you. Game's changed. We got the greatest president in history of this nation sitting in the Oval Office who's going to enforce the immigration law and keep his promise to American people to make this country safe again.
All right, so that was Tom Homan speaking outside the White House. Let's bring back in David Bowe and Steve Gruber for their reaction to what we just heard. One of the things, Steve, that I found most interesting is that Tom Homan was saying that he's going to really ramp up enforcement, that there's going to be even more agents out there on the streets looking for illegals, arresting them at the workplace and anywhere in between. I find that interesting because it seems like it's already been a pretty strong effort.
I agree with that. You know, the thing that struck me about what he said there, because I've been saying this for a long time, nobody wants these people as their neighbors. Nobody wants these people on the street corner. Nobody wants to live next to them. The Democrats don't want to live next to them, but yet they'll fly to El Salvador and say, hey, look, if we want to hang out with this guy. No, they don't. This is a very simple call. Tom Homan is exactly right. Ramp up enforcement, clean up the neighborhoods, get the criminals out of this country, and look. If you happen to get caught and you're here illegally, you're probably not coming back. It's easier to self-deport and come back legally in the future. That's all.
All right. We're going to talk more about this right after this break. Do have to take a quick break now, though.
Let's spill some tea.
Welcome back. I'm American Sunrise contributor Emily Finn. Let's spill some tea, sponsored by Artillery Tea Company. Make sure to go to artilleryteaco.com and use the promo code America's Tea for 25% off your first order. Artillery Tea is all natural, whole leaf. The tea bags are chemical free and each tea bag can be used twice. Artillery Tea Company is family and veteran owned and operated, and a portion of your purchase goes to help veteran and first responder charities. Make sure to go to artilleryteaco.com and use the promo code America's Tea for 25% off your first order. All right, time now to spill some tea. And in the cup today, the second biggest scandal in American history, which, according to President Trump, is former President Biden's use of autopen while in office. In a post on Truth Social, Trump says, quote, other than the rigged presidential election of 2020, the biggest scandal in American history is the autopen. Whoever used it was usurping the power of the presidency, and it should be very easy to find out who that person or persons is. The The president went on to say that with a sound mind, Biden would never have supported some policies like open borders, transgender for everyone, men and women's sports, and far more. Let's bring in Terrance, David, and Bo for more here. You know, Terrance, I got to go to you first. We were talking about this yesterday. It's really going to come down to the accountability of this autopen scandal. I mean, the White House staffers that were behind all of this, that information is going to have to come out, and some heads are going to have to roll.
Yeah, but Emily, I must admit, I'm not so confident that that's going to actually happen. It would be nice. I think the American people deserve that. But I think the issues and who was responsible will come to light. But whether there will actually be true accountability, Bo, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, and speaking of this, I mean, in terms of accountability, you're right, Terrance. We may not see that. But who I'd like to focus on are the doctors. They take a Hippocratic oath to do no harm. What did they know, and when did they know it? Because it was tremendous harm to this country by allowing that man to get out there and do what he did. And we have to look at the executive orders, David. We have to look at the pardons, everything that was done when he was mentally incapacitated.
Bo, you make a great point, especially about the doctors. Original Sin, that book that we all know about with Tapper and Thompson, Alex Thompson. As I read through the whole book, they bring up the doctors weighing in the book, and then they do absolutely zero investigation. No one's talking about that at all. Like, okay, so what happened then? What did the doctor know, when did he know, and all that? Nothing investigated at all in that book. So there needs to be questions for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And Bo, I know you bring this up too, that not just the doctors, but Dr. Jill, his wife, I mean, she is the closest person to him. She should have seen the signs as well. And if she just let this go on, I mean, that is so sad. All right. We want to know what you guys think. All of our viewers, let us know on Rumble or Getter. Hop on and let your voice be heard. Still to come on American Sunrise, to children in Staten Island, keep getting good grades. The story of a New York bodega owner's Grades for Grabs program is going to warm your hearts. American Sunrise is back in just a few minutes. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome back to American Sunrise. I'm Bo Davidson. Thank you so much for joining us today, everyone. And now it's time for the sunny side up. And in the pan today, a New York bodega owner is giving free food to neighborhood kids for good grades. Wally Al-Selwi, co-owner and manager of Zach's Finest Deli and Grocery Store in Port Richmond, Staten Island, says he likes seeing the smiles on children's faces after rewarding them for their hard work. 17-year-old high school junior Madison Walkhead I'm sorry. Oh, my goodness. I thought that was their last name. Junior Madison walked into the bodega. That was my error there. Now my mom can catch me on this one. With her report card earlier this month, and then this heartwarming reaction happens. Watch this.
I got my report card, man.
Madison!
It's better than ever.
Madison! Yo, look. 99? Last time was 98 and then 99. What's this time? What's this time?
It's 100.
100?
Yeah.
I can't believe it. 100?
You gotta get better every market period.
100? Oh my God. Look. 98? 99? 100.
Madison ended up getting a $100 bill for her stellar grades, and then for free food, she chose peanut butter M&Ms, chips, a drink, and candy. Also, she picked out for her mom some pound cake. Alselwi says he started this report card incentive 2 years ago to help inspire a neighborhood kid to improve his grades to get on the honor roll. And guess what? Because of this incentive program, the kid made that honor roll. Alselwi's kindness to kids has now become a viral sensation. So many people have reached out to him asking how they can help that a GoFundMe set up by his brother has hit nearly $50,000. Awesome. Guys, you know, it's a great story. I'm trying to remember when I got good grades, if I went to like the Dairy Queen, was there any incentives for any of you for your good grades?
Yes, my parents were, they really wanted to incentivize us. I never wanted to do my homework, so they said that I could pick anywhere that I wanted to go on a trip. So I picked New York City when I graduated. My sister, she had the option as well, and she was much smarter than me. She picked Dublin, Ireland.